Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto Was the Missing Prince of Whirlpool. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
I'm not going to threaten him. Well, not directly anyway, Kenshin sighed. So what are we doing after that? Naruto laughed. Naruto inquired. The section that could be dangerous will come next. The Mist Village is where we're going. The mizukage is not easily intimidated. In contrast to the daimyo, we must ensure that he realizes that he will regret pursuing a confrontation with Whirlpool. Would this truly cause grandfather to go to war? It appears to be quite extreme. War would cost many lives on both sides, but the mist should definitely pay, Naruto said. Father can destroy the Mist Village without going to war of the 5 great ninja villages. The Mist Village is by far the weakest, even though their ninja are of a higher caliber than those of, say, the Sand Village. Their numbers pale in comparison to those of the Leaf or Stone. The Cloud Village has numbers and strength. The military's ability to threaten the mainland villages is further limited by Mist's island location. It doesn't help that the number of ninja they produce each year is only a fraction of that of the other villages, Naruto replied. That is accurate. However, the mizukage might disregard all of that and do something foolish to demonstrate that his village is more powerful than it actually is. It has previously occurred. Like when Whirlpool was attacked by the first mizukage. Yes, but the mizukage wouldn't be that stupid, in my opinion. Outside of Whirlpool, he would attempt to attack our bases and establishments. He would know he couldn't get past our defenses because he lacks the strength the first mizukage possessed. Grandfather wouldn't let that happen. He would definitely retaliate, replied Naruto. He would. Indeed, it appears that the rest of the world is unaware that Dad is an Uzumaki. Kenshin remarked. One would think that the world leaders would know better after what happened the last time he was angry. What were you trying to say last time? I've never heard of it, Naruto remarked. I guess Urahara believed that a family member ought to inform you of this. I suppose I should tell instead of my father. Nice. What then took place? Naruto inquired. It took place roughly 20 years ago actually. I was around your age. The Raikage committed a very foolish act while your mother was lodging at Leaf Village. What did he do? An ecstatic Naruto inquired. He had your mother kidnapped. What, indeed, he was pursuing both our lineage and the nine-tailed fox. He thought he would be powerful enough to subjugate the other countries if he had control of the strongest Baiju that had been added to Cloud Village. What took place? She was rescued from the kidnappers by your father, who was only a genin at the time when the Leaf told my father what had transpired. He was extremely unhappy. Naruto remarked. I bet he was super mad. In my entire life, I have never witnessed my father so furious. He has always maintained his composure, which is quite remarkable for an Uzumaki, as we tend to get angry easily. However, this time was different. I was afraid of the blazing anger in his eyes when the Cloud Village dared to deny everything. His rage reached a breaking point. They asserted that the ninja who abducted Kushina were independent Rouge ninja. You do realize it was a lie? Yes, the Raikage's words didn't really matter by then. All of the information from the ninja that had been captured had been recovered by the Yamanaka clan. Father didn't care whether he could provide evidence or not. What did he do? He declared war on the Cloud Village and the Land of Lightning. Wow, it would have been a challenging campaign even with the Leaf as an ally with a robust military. The Land of Lightning is among the biggest on the continent, Naruto said. In actuality, the conflict did not involve the Leaf Village. Father assured them that it wouldn't be required. What? However, Naruto contended that Whirlpool would not have enough soldiers to combat the Lighting Daimyo's armies and the Raikage's ninja on its own. You overlooked Naruto. His father was trying to convey a message to the world. Kenshin said. Don't mess with the Uzumaki clan. So, he had a strategy? He inquired. Yes, a simple but effective plan. What was it? He rallied every member of Whirlpool's military, leaving just the bare minimum to protect the walls while leading almost 5,000 samurai to the Land of Lightning. He left one of the captains with me to protect the populace in the event that we were attacked. He would have lost by a margin of nearly 3-1, and that would only include the samurai of the Lightning Daimyo. The Cloud Village ninja would make it even more so. Father was well aware of this. For this reason, he called all of the mercenaries, sword sellers, and ninjas who were missing to come fight for him. Anyone who came to fight for him was offered money and asylum, and they arrived in search of the wealth and fame that war could offer. They arrived in their hundreds. Grandfather used the nation's endless wealth to strengthen his army, a smart move. More than 10,000 men and women joined Whirlpool's military. There were some of excellent quality, but the great majority were merely cannon fodder. Even with the increased number, it could not be easy to take on both opponents. The answer was, easier than you might think, Kenshin said. How? Naruto inquired. Father entered the lightning daimyo's palace covertly with 20 of his most formidable fighters. The man was killed by father himself as a result. His eldest son, who was in charge of the samurai legions, had to return quickly to protect their capital in order to ensure that the samurai did not obstruct the assault on Cloud Village. Father sent 5,000 men to harass them after he got back to the camp. The remainder of the army, which was primarily composed of mercenaries, attacked the Raikage under his leadership. Did the Raikage hide in the village himself? Or was it on the field that he met his grandfather? Naruto inquired. The Raikage dared not allow the armies of Whirlpool to enter the village. He met his father on the battlefield and led his village's ninja at first. It was not much of a battle. Father ordered a full frontal assault on the first day, but he only employed mercenary forces, who were ruthlessly slaughtered. The Raikage became haughty as a result, and he used some of his most powerful ninja, including the Jinchuriki, to gain the upper hand. Grandfather set up a trap, too. Yes, he and his captains led Whirlpool Samurai against the Cloud Ninja, and he used a binding seal to subdue the Jinchuriki of the Two Tails. The Raikage's forces suffered severe losses as a result of our armor and seals. The Raikage came to the conclusion that he would not be able to prevent Whirlpool's armies from arriving at Cloud Village. Following 2 days of brutal combat, in a desperate move, he gave the order for his soldiers to flee, and he himself covered the retreat by acting as a rearguard. The Raikage remained alone behind. Yes, he fought our mercenary forces with all he had and held them back for 3 days. For 3 days, he kept a 10,000-strong army at bay? How on earth is that possible? He was an extremely strong man who was fighting valiantly to keep his house safe. Fighting to defend those who are important to us can make one incredibly strong. In essence, he gave his life to keep his village safe from a conflict brought on by his own avarice and desire for power. In the end, his father took his life. It was more of an execution than a valiant struggle. Father took this action to demonstrate to the world that the Uzumaki should be feared and that attacking us would have dire repercussions. Whatever became of Cloud Village? Naruto inquired. They gave up. If they didn't, father would burn it to the ground. Even though they still had the 8 tails, they were aware that the village would eventually fall. Father offered to spare the ninja as well as the civilians. However, they would need to bind themselves to a non-aggression pact with Whirlpool. Father even gave back the 2 tails Jinchuriki and the other ninja that were taken prisoner. Grandfather degraded the Cloud Village by killing the Raikage. All of this was done to demonstrate Whirlpool's power to the world. Yes, Naruto, the land of water, seems to have forgotten and needs to be reminded of our power. Come on, I'll tell you about our plan and how you fit into it, Kenshin said. A few hours later, Naruto was on a horse with his uncle and their samurai escort. They had landed at the closest port to the water country capital, and it didn't take them long to get there. Naruto hadn't been to many cities, and the only place he could compare to this place was Aidendril, and to be honest, it didn't come close. Aidendril was a friendly, welcoming place, full of life, and the people were joyful and full of life, whereas this place was the exact opposite. First of all, it's cold. Naruto had never seen snow before, and he quickly realized that he preferred Whirlpool's white sand beaches and warm, crystal-clear waters over Water Country's ice-covered lakes. The city seemed to be filled with a sense of sadness and misery, and the Uzumaki clan made sure that everyone in this gloomy place had at least food and shelter. Not that they would let the people live off the government while doing nothing for themselves, but if a citizen needed some assistance to get back on their feet, the Uzumaki were happy to help. Naruto remembers all too well what it had been like for him when he was expelled from the orphanage, and he couldn't help but feel sorry for the people who had to live their lives like that. As he was looking around the streets, he noticed something that caught his attention, and he slowed his horse to get a better look. Naruto had been seeing hundreds of homeless people and beggars since they had entered the city, and many of them were women and children. That broke his heart. Across the street from him, in one of the many alleys of the city, was a group of 3 men. They were dressed in worn clothes like many others. What drew Naruto's attention was that they seemed to have cornered one of the many homeless children, a girl about his own age if Naruto had to guess. What happened next made Naruto's eyes widen in shock. One of the men grabbed the girl from behind while another punched the little girl in the stomach, rendering her unconscious. One of the men then slung the unconscious girl over his shoulder, and Naruto watched in shock as they carried her away. Naruto looked around to see if anyone else had seen what he just saw. The people around him either didn't see anything, or worse, they saw it and just ignored it. Naruto was about to call for his uncle but stopped himself. He knew what his uncle would say. His uncle would say that this was not their country and as such, it was not their problem. Well, screw that. Naruto fell back until he was sure that nobody was paying him any attention. A quick water clone and replacement jutsu later, and he was running through the streets in the direction he saw the men take the girl. She was from a small farming village not far from the capital, and although her family never had much and her work was hard, She was happy until she came home to find her mother dead in a puddle of her own blood. Haku's nightmare worsened when her own father confessed to the murder and attempted to kill her as well, but just as he was about to do so, she was able to call upon the hidden power her mother had warned her never to use, which saved her life and killed her father by impaling him on enormous shards of ice. Haku fled her village and traveled through the snow for many days before arriving in the capital. Her clothes were torn, her skin was filthy, and she had been surviving on the scraps she could find in trash cans. She didn't think her life could get any worse, but apparently she was mistaken when she was confronted by 3 men who claimed to want to help her despite her youth. Haku knew these men weren't out to help her, but before she could flee, she was knocked unconscious and found herself in a large cage, and she wasn't alone. There were 4 other girls her age and older, and she could see several other women in similar cages. Naruto had followed the men into an old and dilapidated warehouse, where he used the stealth skills Shigure had practically drilled into him to sneak up on the 2 guards and take them out with ease once inside. Naruto remained hidden until he reached the door leading to the main storage area of the warehouse, where he could hear some men conversing, so he listened intently. "How many of us are prepared to leave?" a man with a haughty tone of voice asked. A rough voice said, "With the one we just brought in, we have 9 children and 14 women." "Excellent. At the market, they ought to bring us a respectable amount of cash if we want to make the ship to Earth Country. We must depart by tomorrow, so get the cages ready for travel." "Yes, sir, we're going to..." "Bastards." As he listened to the conversation, Naruto crept into the room and saw something that made his blood boil. A number of large metal cages, similar to those Naruto had seen used for animals on trading ships, but filled with young women and girls, including the one Naruto had witnessed abducted, most of whom had little to no clothing, and some of whom had none at all, and Naruto could only speculate as to what had happened to them. As Naruto screamed at them, a feeling of rage that he had never experienced before filled every fiber of his being. Bastards. They must have been shocked to see a little blonde boy wearing a pricey kimono standing there looking at them with a hateful expression on his face when Naruto saw them turn to face him. "What on earth is that child? And why is he in this place?" the apparent leader inquired. Naruto didn't respond when his hand touched the handle of his sword, Arashi. His sword started to glow, his eyes glowed, and he drew the legendary sword slowly, almost as if his body were moving on its own. The slavers didn't take any chances after seeing the sword. They thought the child might be a ninja. The leader called for his men to arrive, and soon Naruto was staring at 8 men with his glowing eyes. "I don't know who or what that kid is, but whoever kills the punk can keep that fancy sword as a reward." The leader sneered. A number of the thugs grinned, but before they could attack Naruto, they were caught off guard when a number of glowing chains shot out of his back at a breakneck speed, impaling the majority of them through the chest. The chains flicked contemptuously, sending the 2 remaining slavers reeling for their lives, and the leader, still in disbelief, finally reacted. "Aren't you one of those bloodline freaks?" he asked as he starts to step back in fear. The only answer he gets is that the chakra chains wrap around his arms and legs, immobilizing him. Knowing escape is impossible, the slaver drops to his knees and begs for mercy. "Please don't kill me. I implore you to show mercy." It sounds as though someone or something is speaking through Naruto when he speaks, and he doesn't sound like himself. "You have a wicked soul," Naruto says, "to sat your lust and greed. You have destroyed many lives and preyed on the defenseless. You're a bad person." Naruto then assumed a standard Batojutsu stance in front of the slaver, saying, "To show mercy to the evil is to condemn the innocent to a life of suffering and death." "No, please." The slaver's cries were cut short. Naruto appeared behind him in a move too quick for anyone to follow with their untrained eyes, and a second later the slaver sagged forward, his severed head rolling across the floor. Haku watched in amazement as a boy who appeared to be no older than she was, while still holding the blood-covered sword, walked towards the cage that held her. The eerie blue glow surrounding him faded as he cut the metal chain that kept her cage closed, and before Haku could thank him, the boy fell to the ground. She heard footsteps filling the room, and she hurried to check on him as a number of men wearing armor and carrying drawn swords entered. Before she could blink, a frightening-looking man with long red hair spotted her and the blonde boy with her. "Thank Kami." Haku hears the frightful man murmur as one of the armed men approaches them. "Could Naruto-sama be hurt?" The red-headed, frightful man stands up and responds to the soldier's worried question. "No, Naruto is not hurt, but he is unconscious. He seemed to have wandered into a slave ring operation." "Yes, but we have no authority over this city." "I understand, but that does not imply that we are abandoning these women to their cages. Get them out with your men. We will make arrangements for them to be escorted to their residence. If they have families or homes, they are welcome to join us in Whirlpool. If they have nowhere else to go, we'll bring them to our ship so their wounds can be attended to." "As that sage?" "It is capable of." I am aware of the issues Captain Sagara may encounter, however, I'll be hearing it from Naruto for the remainder of the journey. If I don't assist them, I would rather handle any complaints the daimyo may have than spend days listening to Naruto gripe about my lack of compassion. He is a wonder of wonders, isn't he? Said the captain with a smile. For a brief moment, Kenshin also grinned and said, yes, he is. The next couple of hours passed quickly for Haku. The men, who she now knew were samurai from Whirlpool country, asked her if she had a place to return to. She told them that she didn't, and they found food and warm clothes for everyone when the samurai returned home. Haku heard from some of the women that almost all of the women and girls had agreed to go. Haku went to the room where the blonde boy who had saved her was Naruto Uzumaki, the prince of Whirlpool country and the heir of the Uzumaki clan. She didn't know why a prince would risk his life to save her and the other women, but she wanted to thank him. Well, I followed my instincts. You are aware that you would have informed me that it wasn't our concern. You can't just start attacking people of another country, Naruto. And I told you that I don't remember attacking anyone. All of the women saw you, and they said some of the slavers that escaped also saw you. With more restraint, Naruto uttered, I honestly don't remember. I trust you, Naruto, but please don't act hastily going forward and, please, never leave my side. Yes, uncle, was Naruto's response when the door opened. Both Naruto and Kenshin turned to face the girl who had entered. It was the girl he had seen taken. Naruto was impressed by her beauty. Even though he still thought Hinataheim was more attractive, she was wearing a pink kimono. Naruto said, hello, I'm Naruto. Hi, Naruto-sama, I'm Haku, and I came to express my gratitude for keeping me safe from those men. Haku-chan, you're welcome. However, I don't really care about that stuff, so you don't have to call me Sama. Confused, Haku said, but you're a prince. My nephew forgets his station all too often, Kenshin said, reminding the kids that he was still present. Something I must constantly remind him of. Naruto, your father advised you to adjust it because it won't go away. Kenshin thought it was about time Naruto spent time with someone his own age, so he left the kids to chat while he made arrangements to have the women escorted to the ship. Naruto simply crossed his arms and huffed in frustration, which caused Haku to giggle, which made Naruto smile. The following morning, all of the women, aside from Haku, who insisted on staying by Naruto's side, were escorted to the ship before Naruto began to ramble on about how it was his duty to ensure Haku-chan was okay. Kenshin gave in. To be honest, it wasn't worth the trouble. If anyone inquired about her, Kenshin could simply respond that she was a servant or vassal. After buying Haku a formal kimono, they headed to the daimyo's palace. Naruto wasn't impressed. Compared to the people's palace, this place was a dump. The delegation from Whirlpool was greeted by several high-ranking officials. Naruto's party was told that the daimyo was ready to meet them whenever they were ready. Since they were already a day behind because of the slaver incident, Kenshin wanted to meet the daimyo immediately. Naruto, Haku, Kenshin and Captain Sagara were led to the throne room. Kenshin noticed a considerable number of samurai and mist ninja guards. He was not worried much because none of them would be much of a threat to him, and with Captain Sagara here, Kenshin wouldn't have to worry much about Naruto's safety since he trusted Sosuke to protect Naruto and Haku with his life. Kenshin had wanted to leave Haku with the other samurai because he was only allowed to bring 2 guards or servants to the meeting, but Naruto gave him a look that he had seen on his elder sister many times. Kenshin never won an argument with his sister once she got that stubborn look on her face. Naruto first saw the water country's daimyo when the group entered the throne room. He was sitting on his throne with 2 samurai on either side of him. The daimyo was a man in his 40s with long black hair. He was wearing a white and blue royal kimono, and Naruto could see that the man was very nervous. The daimyo's eyes were fixed on Naruto's uncle, and he was terrified. Naruto had observed how people would stare at his uncle Kenshin, and it was uncanny how they would look at him, as if he were a monster. Salutations to Prince Kenshin. Having a Roku Kyoshu in my house is a privilege. How did your journey go? I was anticipating your arrival yesterday, the daimyo said, his voice a little apprehensive. I apologize for our tardiness. However, we were delayed due to an incident. Kenshin, being careful to maintain his civility, said, my father is in good health and as strong as ever. May I introduce my nephew, Naruto Uzumaki, crown prince of Whirlpool and future daimyo of Whirlpool. He said, gesturing to Naruto, who made a small bow. Yes, indeed, I was informed that the 4th Hokage and the princess's missing son had been located. You resemble your dad. I'm glad to have met you, young one. Naruto replied, thank you, the pleasure is mine. I don't mean to be rude, Daimyo Dono, but I believe we should speak about why we are here, replied Kenshin. The daimyo gave a tense, yes, of course, response. Your country's ninja attacked a Whirlpool vessel. Any other nation would undoubtedly consider this to be an act of war. War? You must exaggerate. There was a small miscommunication. Several Whirlpool residents were killed, and a ship was damaged, losing its cargo. This is not a small miscommunication, Kenshin replied firmly. You must realize that a civil war is about to break out in my nation. I was reassured by the mizukage that it would not occur again. Furthermore, your samurai also killed a lot of mist ninja. My samurai defended their ship from an invading force that had no authority in international waters. It's a misunderstanding, however. What you demand in return is intolerable. We don't believe that paying for the ship and goods lost as well as surrendering the ones responsible so they can stand trial for the murder of our people unacceptable. Ryo, you're requesting 10 million. The mizukage would not voluntarily turn over his ninja to stand trial for what he feels was right. Even if I were prepared to pay so much, weapons and supplies have been smuggled by the rebels. I have no doubt that those bloodline freaks are getting ready to start a war. However, I am prepared to pay 2 million Ryo as an apology for this regrettable incident in order to demonstrate to your father that I have no malice towards Whirlpool. With a narrowed gaze, Kenshin said, you do realize that the Uzumaki clan is a bloodline-wielding clan. Oh, why yes, how foolish of me. Yes, I do recall you are a member of the Celestial Chain's bloodline, the daimyo said in a reserved tone. A special method of chakra manipulation that grants your clan multiple abilities. It was obvious that he thought all people with bloodline abilities were scum, even though he didn't want to offend Kenshin. Not to mention the notorious Uzumaki outburst. I can assure you that my father would find your apology offensive. Kenshin's tone made it clear what he meant when he said, and I'm sure you can remember what happened to the last daimyo that insulted my father. Why, you wouldn't dare, the daimyo said, gulping visibly. It's funny that you said that. Of course you are much smarter than him, Kenshin said, causing all of the guards in the room to become alert and prepare their weapons without drawing them. That was exactly what the lightning daimyo said before my father killed him. You are aware that if we go to war, we will destroy you and your nation. You are not well liked by your own people, and you are aware that thousands of this nation's rebels would join us. The daimyo clenched his jaw and said, all right, what do you want? He spat. You won't obstruct our efforts against the Mist Village, Ryo, and you'll pay the entire 20 million inches. You and your civilians will be left alone if we go to war, and it will only be with the mizukage, Kenshin stated. The mizukage was responsible for infuriating the Uzumaki, so for all the daimyo cared, he could go to hell. Fine, I will have the money transferred to one of your accounts by tomorrow. The daimyo glared at Kenshin, knowing that there was nothing he could do and that if a full-scale war with Whirlpool broke out, the rebels would use it to kill him and his family. He hated to be manipulated in this way, but he had no choice but to comply. I then express my gratitude for your hospitality. In order to communicate with the mizukage, my men and I will depart right away and go to the Mist Village. If everything goes according to plan, this can be settled without resorting to violence, Kenshin stated. The daimyo was not in the mood to keep the Uzumaki here any longer than necessary, so he said, fine, you're welcome to leave if you wish. The sooner they left, the better. The Uzumaki left the capital within an hour and made their way to the Mist Village, where they would meet the mizukage. A meeting that would be remembered for a long time. Village of Hidden Mist. The daimyo has decided to protect his own skin. Although regrettable, it wasn't totally unexpected. A masked Anbu asked, what are your orders, Lord Mizukage? The Uzumaki believe that we can be intimidated and controlled. It's time for our village to make amends to the Uzumaki for the humiliation we endured in the past. Let us prepare a proper welcome for them, as they will arrive by tomorrow evening, the fourth Mizukage said. The Anbu uttered the words, yes, Lord Mizukage, as he vanished into a flood of water. The following day, while traveling to the Mist Village with the rest of the Whirlpool party, a lone figure appeared in front of them on the road. Captain Sagara and other samurai immediately flanked Naruto, who had been riding alongside Haku. Kenshin, showing no signs of concern, got off his horse and approached the person, a woman with long, auburn-colored hair and an Anbu-style mask and armor, but without a Mist Village headband or any other things or insignia linking her to the Mist Village. What do you want, and who are you? Kenshin questioned in a direct manner. Like many others, I've had enough of the bigotry of the mizukage and the daimyo. I support the fight against the senseless extermination of all the country's bloodline-bearing clans. So, the daimyo is afraid of you because you are one of the rebels. What are you looking for? Kenshin inquired. To inform you that once you arrive in the Mist Village, the mizukage plans to murder you. He has already set up an ambush. Anger tightened Kenshin's hold on his sword. Is Yugura really that dumb? I'm too strong for him. What does he think my father would do to this nation if he killed my nephew, even if he were able to kill me somehow? Water country would be completely destroyed by the Uzumaki daimyo. I have come to warn you. Because of this, I'm hoping you can get ready for it, or, if you can, go back. Opponents of oppression in our nation are nearly prepared to retaliate. We'll stop the needless killing of innocent people, or we'll perish trying. We're not going back. The Uzumaki never backs down or flees, Kenshin declared. The mizukage will realize his error at the end of my blade if he believes he can threaten my family. It hasn't been the mizukage. In addition to acting strangely, he has become more vicious and bloodthirsty than ever. Some of us think it's due to an external source, but I'm not sure. That doesn't matter. He is either an adversary or a pawn in an adversary's game. In any case, he must be dealt with. I appreciate the warning, and please know that Uzumaki and Whirlpool country will support you in any manner we can when the time comes for you to retake your nation, Kenshin said. I'm grateful. As she took off her mask, she declared, my name is Mei Darumi, and we would welcome any help we can get. We will soon be ready to begin an open rebellion, she said. So don't be scared to inquire. I have to leave now because I have a meeting with the mizukage. Even though they would be vastly outnumbered and in enemy territory, the Guardian Corps members were prepared for battle and willing to face anything under Kenshin's leadership. Kenshin returned to the group and told his men what the mizukage was planning. A young white-haired boy sat in a cell in a remote village close to the hidden mist, and when he heard footsteps, he looked up to see his clan leader. Kimimaro, your skill is needed by the clan. Come, we're attacking the village hidden in the mist. Kimimaro stood without question. His only goal was to kill. When the Whirlpool samurai approached the mist village, they were ready to fight if necessary. However, when they arrived, they discovered that the village was already being attacked by an unidentified enemy. Kenshin saw an opportunity and decided to take advantage of it, leaving Haku and Naruto with Captain Sagara and his men while he infiltrated the village by himself. Naruto was unaware of the situation, but he and Haku could see that the mist village was being attacked. There were fires and the sounds of fighting everywhere. He nearly missed it when a white-haired boy leapt from one of the village walls and fled into the woods. He had no idea why, but he was chasing after him before he realized what he was doing. Naruto-sama, return here. As he continued to chase after the boy, Naruto heard multiple samurai yell at him. He ran as quickly as he could, but he had lost sight of the white-haired boy. Naruto was scanning his surroundings when he sensed danger, and he instinctively pulled Arashi in time to block a blow from a white knife that appeared to be made of bone. What the devil? Yelled Naruto as he saw the boy he had been chasing drop down from a tree. He had another bone knife and was ready to attack when Naruto yelled at him, wait, I have no intention of harming you. The boy, who appeared exhausted and hurt, paused but continued to attack, moving with remarkable speed, and Naruto barely managed to block his blows. However, it was clear that this boy was much more experienced in combat. Naruto was being overpowered. This boy, who only appeared to be a few years older than him, fought with a fierce intensity that Naruto was not used to. He had to concentrate so hard on his defense that he was unable to pay attention to his surroundings. Naruto tripped and fell to the ground after losing his footing on a root, and the white-haired boy was about to take advantage of his error when a wall of ice appeared in front of Naruto, blocking the boy's attack. When both boys turned around, Haku was looking enraged. You won't harm Naruto-sama. The boy was about to attack Haku, but Naruto was already awake when she growled at him. Cease. Our purpose is not to cause you harm, Naruto said. We just want to know what's going on. As this was happening, a number of Whirlpool samurai showed up, and Kimimaro, who was nearly out of chakra and knew he couldn't defeat them all, prepared himself for death. Kimimaro Kagaya is my name for some reason. My clan attacked the mist village. I was told I had to fight, but not why. Their strongest ninja didn't appear until we were well into the village, so we took them by surprise and dealt a lot of damage to them. I made the decision to flee after witnessing the death of my clan. I thought you were mist ninja, so I attacked when I sensed you were pursuing me. Mist ninjas are not as. This is Haku-chan, and my name is Naruto Uzumaki, and they are samurai from my homeland, the land of Whirlpool. Naruto gestures. Your clan rescued us because we were informed that the mizukage intended to attack us once we arrived. Kimimaro, what are your plans? Naruto inquired. Kimimaro said, looking perplexed. I'm not sure. Killing for my clan was the only reason I was alive. My clan is no longer there, he said. I have no purpose. Haku responded to him, saying, I was like you, Kimimaro, just a few days ago. I thought I had no purpose in life. However, Naruto-sama came to my rescue. I think my role now is to protect and serve him because you are strong. You can also help keep him safe. Naruto-sama is a good-hearted individual who has empathy. Protecting someone like Naruto-sama is the greatest goal in life. Very well, I will serve you if you'll have me, Kimimaro said, looking at Haku, who smiled at him, and then at Naruto, as if to check if what Haku had said was true or not. Kimimaro was fascinated by the passion that the girl named Haku seemed to have for this blonde boy, and he wondered if he would be able to feel the same way about him. Naruto's eyes were different from those of his clan members. Kimimaro had just tried to kill Naruto, and now he was saying he would serve him? His uncle would not be pleased. Sure. No problem, Naruto said. Bewildered, my grandfather will have to determine whether it's okay for you to accompany us to Whirlpool, Naruto said. Kimimaro nodded, and Haku grinned. Captain Sagara knew he was going to be scolded for this, but it was nearly worth it to see Naruto and Haku grinning at a bewildered Kimimaro. Yagura was so focused on the village that he hadn't noticed a presence nearby until it was too late. Out of the shadows, several glowing white chains wrapped around him, completely immobilizing him and suppressing his chakra. He couldn't even draw on the three tails that was inside of him in the mist village. Yagura looked at his village in frustration. They had been caught off guard by the damned Kagaya. The savages had killed many of his ninja and set fire to many buildings, and it would take obscene amounts of time and money to recover from this. You had this planned? As Kenshin emerged from the shadows, he said, No, but I admit it was a better situation than I had planned. So you believe you can kill me? What will the other countries think of that? It will lead to conflict in your priceless nation. Kenshin drew his sword and, with a quick flick of his wrist, cut off Yagura's head, saying, Maybe, but if it happens, I will defend my home with every fiber of my being. And at least you will not threaten my home again. Kenshin vanished into the darkness, unaware that a man wearing an orange mask and a single Sharingan eye had watched the entire event. When Kenshin returned to his men, he was a little taken aback to see that Haku was riding with Naruto and that a white-haired boy was now on his horse. When he turned to face Naruto, the latter merely grinned in embarrassment and scratched the back of his head. I don't even want to know about it right now, Kenshin said, simply shaking his head. Come on, it would be interesting to see what life was like with the new members of Naruto Uzumaki's retinue. It's time to go home, he said, and the Uzumaki returned to the ship. In a desperate attempt to ward off the migraine that was beginning to creep up on him, Genryusai Uzumaki sat on his throne and massaged his forehead. His son, who appeared to be his normal unconcerned self, and his anxious-looking grandson, who seemed ready to flee if necessary, were standing in front of him. A pretty girl with black hair and a stoic-looking boy with white hair were standing behind Naruto, looking at him with relaxed attention. Genryusai had heard that since he had first met them in Water Country, Naruto had spent a lot of time with both kids. Explain to me again how a diplomatic envoy that was to subtly remind the Water Daimyo and Mizukage that our clan was a dangerous enemy, ended with a dead cage, and the Water Daimyo now saying that Whirlpool is not only aiding, but that we orchestrated the recently started rebellion against him? Asked Genryusai, getting impatient. The daimyo's claims are unfounded and impossible for him to prove. He is only trying to lay the blame at someone else's feet, began Kenshin. So the ship full of supplies and provisions that you ordered to meet someone in the rebel-controlled port town on the south coast of Water Country is a completely unrelated matter, son, replied Genryusai. Kenshin replied, not concerned about being discovered. It was a debt that was owed to someone who helped our clan. I promised that we would grant them help in return, and Uzumaki always keeps their promises, father. Yes, Ame Terumi, she is the leader of one of the three groups involved in the conflict in Water Country. The fact that you are helping her will make it look like the daimyo is right about us being involved in his country's civil war, replied Genryusai. Hearing that startled Kenshin. I was not aware that she led the rebel forces. And what do you mean one of three groups involved? What other group would be involved in this war? Replied Kenshin. It appears that the people of Water Country are split into three groups. The Bloodline users and their allies are led by Meiterumi. What you may not know is that the Mist and the Daimyo have split up into different sides of this conflict. That is unexpected, father. I would have thought the Daimyo would have picked a new Mizukage that was loyal to him, replied Kenshin. Oh, I'm sure he intended to do just that. However, there were some unanticipated complications, replied Genryusai. Like what? Kenshin inquired. From what we know, it looks like someone took advantage of the situation to make a play for power, stated Genryusai. Do we know who? Yes, shortly after the death of the Mizukage was discovered, an emergency meeting was called by the village elders. What was left of the ninja council met with them to decide who will be the next Mizukage. That makes sense. They would not want to look weak and leaderless. That would invite further aggression from their enemies, stated Kenshin. Unfortunately for them, someone had other plans. Zabuza Momochi, a member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, launched a coup d'etat. He managed to kill several members of the council, including one of the elders. However, he was too reckless and his few followers were defeated. He was forced to flee the village. He will likely leave the country since neither the rebels nor the daimyo will trust him now. I don't see how this would cause the daimyo and the Mist to break ties, Kenshin replied. Because of the members that Zabuza killed, the balance of power has changed in the Mist village. The few surviving members of the council that now run the village are not as strongly supportive of the daimyo's bigotry against bloodline users. While they don't intend to let rebels take control of the village, the council doesn't want the daimyo to place another Mizukage that will continue a genocidal crusade that is weakening their military strength, stated Genri Yusai. Basically the three sides are fighting among themselves for different reasons, stated Kenshin. Yes, it appears that Water Country will be in a state of civil war for the foreseeable future, stated Genri Yusai. Kenshin remarked, if it is, it's not our concern. After forcing Kenshin to handle all the political issues this would bring to Whirlpool, Genri Yusai would need to find out if his son shared his sentiments. The Uzumaki daimyo nearly burst into tears at the thought of the paperwork that would be involved. Yes, Genri Yusai intended to abdicate responsibility for this to his son. However, there were other matters to attend to for the time being. Very well, son, we will talk about this at a later time. For now, how about you explain to me how you left with one child in your care and returned with two extras? I'm interested in hearing that particular story, said Genri Yusai with a wry grin. Don't ask me, father, that would be all Naruto's doing. It appears that he has inherited my sister's tendency to act first and worry about the consequences later, replied Kenshin. Hey! Exclaimed Naruto, who was annoyed by that notion. Genri Yusai said, so Naruto, why don't you introduce your two friends? As he spoke, Naruto straightened up a bit. Naruto gestured to the girl to his left and said, Grandfather, allow me to introduce you to Haku. Haku bowed and said, it is an honor to meet you, Daimyo-sama. Haku is a descendant of the Yuki clan that is thought to have been wiped out during the last war. One have seen her use the ice release bloodline. She only discovered she had it recently, so she has little control over it. I am hoping to help her get better control over her ability. Genri Yusai had to acknowledge that was not what he had anticipated. The girl exuded kindness and had a soft appearance. It had surprised him that she came from a bloodline limited clan. Genri Yusai said, welcome to Whirlpool, Haku of the Yuki clan. In return, Haku bowed again. This is Kimimaro of the Kagaya clan, Naruto said, gesturing to the white-haired boy standing to his right. Kimimaro bowed and said, it is an honor to meet you, Daimyo-sama. Genri Yusai was surprised by that as well. The boy's voice was emotionless as he spoke. The Uzumaki daimyo was not particularly comforted by the fact that he came from a bloodthirsty clan. For now, though, he would give the boy the benefit of the doubt. Genri Yusai said, welcome to Whirlpool, Kimimaro of the Kagaya clan. Kimimaro, like Haku, bowed. Well, you have made some interesting friends, Naruto. However, you know that you have little free time in your schedule. While I don't mind if they stay at the palace for the time being. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, grandfather. I have a request to make as Prince of Whirlpool, replied Naruto. Genri Yusai's eyebrow went up. Naruto rarely used his title to make a request because he disliked being treated as though he was superior to others. Naruto would occasionally attempt to forget his station. He must be very concerned about this. Genri Yusai inquired, what is your request, Naruto? I would like to take both Haku and Kimimaro on as vassals to the Uzumaki clan, and furthermore I would like to have them be my personal bodyguards, stated Naruto. This is not an easy request to grant, Naruto. While both of your friends come from known clans, for them to become vassals to our clan they would normally have to. I know the requirements that are normally made for clan to be considered a vassal house to the Uzumaki clan, grandfather, but I'm not asking for their clans to be accepted, only for Haku and Kimimaro. Naruto then laughed. Just because they are the last of their clans doesn't mean that their clans are being accepted, right? Naruto's plan was a very cunning one, Genri Yusai had to concede. The other nobles could not accuse Genri Yusai of insulting the children if he simply treated them as vassals rather than members of their clans. After all, it was regarded as a great honor for a clan to become a vassal house of the Uzumaki clan. For many, it had taken generations to gain the honor. The other clans had earned it by somehow serving the Uzumaki clan and Whirlpool. Naruto and Haku grinned broadly, while Kimimaro managed to look pleased despite not smiling. Very well, Naruto, I will grant your request from this day forward. Haku of the Yuki clan and Kimimaro of the Kagaya clan are accepted vassals and the personal bodyguards of Naruto Uzumaki. It will be hard work for all three of you, so I hope you're all ready for it, replied Genri Yusai. However, judging by the expressions on their faces, all three of them were prepared for anything. It was agreed that, with the exception of the training conducted specifically for an Uzumaki, Haku and Kimimaro would accompany Naruto in his training. The majority of Naruto's instructors embraced the newcomers. Actually, Hiei was the only one who grumbled about having to watch more kids. The other teachers relished the extra students' attention. Megumi paid particular attention to Haku, who she claimed was naturally gifted in the field of medicine. Shiger was drawn to Haku as well because the girl picked up the use of many weapons quickly, particularly thrown weapons like senbon and shuriken. Kimimaro eventually won the affection of Sanosuke and Hiei. They both knew what they were capable of because they had battled against Kagaya clan members. Sano loved teaching Kimimaro taijutsu because he was a natural at it. Hiei gave those training sessions more effort, and Kimimaro also had a gift for kenjutsu. The teachers realized right away that the kids would form a strong team. Haku would provide long-distance support in addition to serving as the medic as the leader. Naruto would combine taijutsu, kenjutsu, fuinjutsu, and ninjutsu to become a mid to close range fighter. Kimimaro would use strong taijutsu and kenjutsu to fight at close range. Now that Naruto had kids his own age to hang out with, everyone in the palace could see the difference in him. He used to be constantly laughing and smiling, but there was also a hint of loneliness in his eyes. Naruto now had the friends that every child needed. He no longer appeared to be missing anything from his life, and his smiles were brighter and his eyes were filled with more emotion and happiness. Naruto now had friends who would support and shield him no matter what. Regretfully, he now had 2 more accomplices to help him pull practical jokes on some of the palace's residents. In the village of the Leaf, when Hinata finally received a letter from Naruto, she was pleased. He informed her that he was going on a trip to Water Country more than a month ago, which is when she last received one from him. Naruto described his trip and its events to Hinata in the letter. He finally made some friends his own age. Naruto also told Hinata since she had no friends until she met Kiba and Shino a few months ago. Hinata understood Naruto's feelings better than anyone else. As a result, she was happy for Naruto. She was happy for him, but when she looked at the picture Naruto sent her, she couldn't help but feel strange. Naruto stood in the center of the image, flanked by a very attractive girl with black hair on his left and a stoic-looking boy with white hair on his right. When Hinata trained with Naruto in Whirlpool, she wore Uzumaki training kimonos, which all 3 of them were wearing. With his arms folded across his chest and a radiant smile, Naruto was beaming with joy. Hinata was only experiencing a strange feeling because the smiling girl was standing dreadfully close to Naruto. At least in her opinion. She was bothered by the fact that she was unable to identify it later. She would have to ask her mother. After putting Naruto's letter aside, Hinata prepared to go to school. Today's class was buzzing with excitement. It was because today was the inaugural taijutsu tournament. In order to assist with the class rankings, Iruka-sensei informed them last week that they would participate in a single elimination tournament. Hinata was ranked 2nd in academics, behind Sasuke Uchiha and just ahead of Sakura Haruno, which greatly infuriated the pink-haired girl. Up until now, they had only academic rankings, and most students didn't care about those. As they left the classroom, Kiba asked, "So, how do you think you'll do?" "I don't know," was Hinata's candid response. "I think Hinata will do well in the tournament since the boys and girls are not fighting each other. It is logical to conclude that Hinata, with her training in the gentle fist style, will have a strong advantage over the other girls," stated Shino. Hinata remarked, "But we are not allowed to use chakra. Like you'll need it. The only real competition you might get is from Ino, and even then it shouldn't be anything you can't handle," Kiba replied. Hinata blushed when her friends complimented her. "Thank you. I know both of you will do well too," she replied. Kiba confidently remarked, "That's right, I get to finally put Sasuke in his place." Shino merely shook his head, but Hinata grinned at her friend. Hinata easily advanced to the final round. Just as her friends had predicted, her female classmates didn't seem to be very serious about their training. Ino Yamanaka was Hinata's last opponent, just as Shino and Kiba had anticipated. After defeating Sakura in the last round, Ino was feeling a little cocky. With confidence, Ino declared, "Sasuke will realize that I'm the only girl for him after one more victory." Hinata listened to several of the girls argue with Ino, but she remained silent. Hinata simply prepared for the match by assuming her gentle fist stance. As Iruka said, "Ready, okay, begin." Ino raised her fist and charged at Hinata. Hinata had no trouble dodging Ino's rather haphazard attacks. After just a few minutes, Hinata didn't even appear to be warmed up, and Ino was breathing heavily. Ino shouted in between breaths, "Why are you only avoiding me? Are you scared to fight me?" Hinata calmly replied, "No, I was just getting a feel for your fighting style." She said, "I think I have seen enough," and Hinata attacked her before Ino could respond. Ino was powerless to stop Hinata's attack. Hinata's palm strikes, even without the use of chakra, were powerful, and because Ino was already exhausted from her pointless attacks, she was unable to adequately defend herself. Ino was knocked to the ground with a final blow to the chin. She was clearly not getting back up, even though she was still conscious. Iruka declared, "Hinata won the match." After blushing slightly, Hinata exited the ring with a slight bow. Hinata heard someone talking to her as she was walking over to where Shino and Kiba were standing. "Congratulations, that was a good match." Hinata turned to see that the person who had spoken to her was Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke rarely praised others, so she was taken aback. The fact that every other girl in the class was giving her death glares did not surprise Hinata. Thank you Sasuke. And good luck in your match. She replied. Sasuke nodded to her before entering the ring. Sasuke and Kiba faced off in the boys' last match. Kiba questioned, "What did Mr. I'm so cool want?" "Just to congratulate me on my victory," she replied. She said to him, "Good luck in your match, Kiba." He said, "Thanks Hinata." As he walked toward the ring, beside her was Shino, who had lost to Sasuke in the last round. "It appears that our female classmates didn't like that Sasuke gave you some attention," stated Shino. Hinata gave a shrug. She declared, "I don't care about that. He has been staring at you when he thinks no one is looking," he stated. Hinata looked at him, startled. "What?" she inquired. "Sasuke, he has been staring at you when he thinks no one is looking," he said again. Hinata reddened slightly. She said, "Oh, I hadn't noticed. While I am not certain, his behavior could mean that he likes you," replied Shino. "Apparently it's the opinion of every other girl in the class that Sasuke is attractive." Hinata was uncertain about Shino's intentions. "I guess he is, but I don't really see him that way," she replied. Shino gave her a long look. He turned to the match that was about to begin after saying, "I see," much to Hinata's relief. Kiba and Sasuke charged at one another as soon as Iruka began the match. Although they traded blows, Sasuke was in the stronger position. Sasuke's style was more focused than Kiba's, and he was faster. Kiba attempted to charge in and overwhelm his opponent with a more animalistic style. Ultimately, Sasuke was able to take advantage of one of Kiba's errors and kick Kiba in the head with great force. Before Kiba could recover, Sasuke launched his attack, hitting Kiba with blow after blow. Iruka had had enough and called off the match when a bloodied Kiba collapsed to the ground. "Okay, that's enough. Winner of the match is Sasuke," Iruka replied. Shino and Hinata hurried over to join their friend. A concerned Hinata inquired, "Are you alright, Kiba?" "Damn it, I lost," Kiba screamed, beating the ground in exasperation. "You tried your best, Kiba, and you did very well," replied Hinata. "Hinata is right. You should learn from this and train to be ready for next time," Shino replied. Kiba, sounding more like himself, said, "I guess yeah, you guys are right. I'll get the jerk next time." Though the other girls, particularly Ino and Sakura, would glare at Hinata whenever they looked at her, the remainder of the day passed without any problems. Hinata was escorted home after school. When Hinata arrived at the garden, she discovered her mother keeping an eye on Hanabi while she played with her toys. Hana said, "Hello honey. How was school today?" Hinata grinned. "It was great mom. We had our first taijutsu tournament today. I won the girls tournament. Shino got third place and Kiba got second." "That's great Hinata. I'm very proud of you," replied Hana. Hinata said, Mom? Can I ask you a question?" Hana said, "Of course, Hinata, go ahead." "Well, do you remember the picture that Naruto-kun sent me in his last letter?" "Yes, you showed it to me and your father this morning. Why do you ask?" Nervously, Hinata began tapping her fingertips together. "Well, it's just that I get this weird feeling when I look at it," replied Hinata. "A weird feeling? What kind of feeling, honey?" replied Hana. "Well, I am happy that he made new friends. It's just, one of them is a very pretty girl and I don't know, I get this feeling that makes me feel uncomfortable for some reason," replied Hinata. The irritated expression on her daughter's face made Hana smile. "Well, it appears that Hinata is a little envious. According to the letter I received from Genryu Sai, Hinata shouldn't be concerned." Hana thought, "I suppose I should tell her that. Tell me Hinata, do you like Naruto?" Hinata reddened. She said, "Well, yeah, I do like Naruto-kun." "And do you think Naruto would ever want to hurt you?" Hana responded. "No, Naruto-kun is very kind. I don't think he would ever want to hurt anybody," replied Hinata. "Well then you don't have anything to worry about, honey. After all, both of your best friends are boys and there is nothing wrong with that, right?" "I guess you're right, Mom. Thank you for explaining it to me. Anytime you want to talk about anything, you know I'm here for you, Hinata," replied Hana. Hinata hugged Hana and said, "Thanks again, Mom. I have go and do my school work before it's time or our training. I'll see you later, Mom," said Hinata on her left. Hinata awoke later that night to the sound of voices coming from her parents' room. She remained silent and made an effort to hear. "I don't know what they want, Hana. All the Anbu said was that the Hokage has called for an emergency meeting," Hiyashi responded. "At his time of the night? Something must have happened," replied Hana. "I know I'll have the branch members double the guards. Get Hanabi and stay on alert. Guards will be posted at our door and on Hinata's room as well. I have to go," he replied. Hana said, "Love, be careful," he said, "always," and walked out of the room for a while. Hinata would remain awake, wondering what had happened to cause her father to worry so much. She had no idea that everyone in the village would be shocked to learn what had happened the next day. When Hiyashi entered the council room, the other clan leaders and civilian council members all had the same bewildered expression on their faces as he did. Hiyashi sat down beside Shikaku Nara. Hiyashi questioned, "Do you have any idea what's going on?" "No, nobody knows anything, but I have a feeling it involves the only one that isn't here," replied Shikaku. Hiyashi noticed that only one clan head was missing as he scanned the room. "Maybe Fugaku is late, after all I just got here." Shikaku gave a headshake. "No, he has never been late to any meeting. The head of the ninja police is always the first to be notified something happened, and it has to involve the Uchiha," he replied. The Hokage and his advisors came into the room as Shikaku was finishing that sentence. The Hokage spoke after they had all taken their seats. The third Hokage spoke sorrowfully as he said, "Thank you all for coming in on such short notice. It is my regret to inform you all that there has been a horrible tragedy in our village tonight. Earlier tonight, Itachi Uchiha turned traitor and slaughtered the entire Uchiha clan." The council let out a startled gasp, and then there was shouting and yelling everywhere. "Quiet!" The Hokage yelled. "I know this is a shock to all of us, but please try to remain calm." "Lord Hokage, are you telling us that there were no survivors? That Itachi killed every member of his clan?" asked one of the council members. "There is only one survivor, Itachi's brother, Sasuke Uchiha. However, the boy suffered severe mental trauma and we are uncertain the boy will come out of the coma he is in," stated the Hokage. Another said, "And what about Itachi? I have ordered several Anbu squads after him. As of now, Itachi Uchiha is a S-class missing ninja," stated the Hokage. The village, and eventually the other elemental nations, would be inundated with the news of the Uchiha massacre like wildfire. Since the Uchiha massacre, a number of mods had passed. The Leaf Village suffered a terrible blow when one of their biggest and strongest clans vanished. It would have been tempting for some of the rival villages to attack the Leaf if it weren't for the allies. However, the Leaf Village demonstrated their tenacity despite their defeat. It demonstrated why it was regarded as the strongest of the ninja nations and refused to seem weak in the eyes of its peers. No new missions were turned down, and none of the ongoing missions were cancelled or delayed after the massacre. The Leaf Village persisted with little impact in the eyes of outsiders. It was a completely different situation for the residents of Leaf Village. The absence of the ninja police force's constant presence was glaringly obvious. The new ninja police force will be composed of ninja from multiple clans as well as some clan-less ninja, as the Hokage had determined that putting one clan in charge once more would be a mistake. Rebuilding the police force was a slow process at the moment due to a lack of personnel, but the Hokage was making it a top priority. No one in Leaf Village had been more devastated by the Uchiha clan's defeat than Sasuke Uchiha, the lone survivor of the massacre. Because of his brother's mental attack, Sasuke had been in a coma for more than a week. After that, he was hospitalized for more than a month. Following his discharge from the hospital, it became evident that Sasuke Uchiha had undergone a transformation. Anyone would be changed by such an incident, but the Hokage was afraid for the boy. Like the majority of Uchiha, Sasuke had never been particularly amiable, but he had also never been antagonistic. Though they rarely displayed overt hostility toward others, the Uchiha clan always felt they were better than everyone else and that Uchiha shouldn't be treated like a commoner. When he left the hospital, Sasuke Uchiha was blatantly hostile to anyone who even glanced at him. The boy declined the Hokage's offer to transfer him to a different clan. He demanded to live with his parents. Sasuke was allowed to live alone in the deserted compound, despite the Hokage's disapproval. The reports that the boy's teachers sent him worried the Hokage more. Although Sasuke was never a particularly gregarious child, he now avoided interacting with his peers. Every time one of them attempted to be friendly with him, he would respond with open animosity, expressing his desire to be left alone. In addition to becoming excessively combative during his taijutsu spars, Sasuke had already hurt a number of his partners. Although Sasuke had received warnings, the Hokage was concerned about what would happen to the boy if he persisted in his current course. Sasuke's current course only leads to darkness. The third's only hope is that the boy's emotional scars will eventually heal. While eating her lunch in silence, Hinata listened to Kiba gripe about the unjust punishment he had received from his mother for playing a practical joke on his sister the previous week. Hinata loved hanging out with her pals. Although Hinata was friendly with a number of her classmates, she hadn't made many friends with other kids. She was okay with the girls in her class largely ignoring her. At least they stopped attempting to get her for stealing Sasuke's attention following the events involving Sasuke's family. Sasuke made Hinata feel sorry for him. She couldn't imagine losing every member of her clan the way Sasuke did. Even though her clan wasn't the closest of families, Hinata was concerned about Sasuke's reaction to the loss of his clan. He never had any true friends in the past. He now reacted violently to anyone who attempted to show him kindness. When Hinata attempted to offer her condolences, he responded with a glare, which was one of his friendlier demeanors. Kiba said, "Hinata, did you hear me?" "Oh, I'm sorry Kiba. I didn't hear what you said. I asked if you're excited for the summer vacation. Your birthday is a couple weeks after school gets out, right? So, what are your parents planning?" Hinata hadn't yet mentioned Naruto to her friends. "Well, my parents are taking my sister and me to spend the summer out of the country." She was aware that they would question why she was traveling to Whirlpool of all places if she told them she was spending the summer there. "Aw man, that means we won't get to see you on your birthday," sighed Kiba. In an attempt to soothe Kiba, Shino remarked, "I'm sure Hinata's parents have a logical reason for this Kiba. Perhaps they wish to spend some time as a family away from the village." "Well, there's always next year, right?" Kiba smiled. "Yeah, I guess." Hinata was reluctant to inform him that she would be spending every summer in Whirlpool. One of the Uzumaki clan's numerous aides cautiously entered the daimyo's office in Whirlpool. As soon as she entered, she froze, became immobile, and stood motionless. She was gazing into an Uzumaki's raptor gaze. Into a pair of piercing violet eyes. She saw the eyes narrow into a smoldering glare as they darted to the pile of papers in her hands. The assistant quickly moved forward and put the papers on the desk, saying, Excuse me, you Uzumaki-sama. But here is more paperwork that needs to be done by tea today." She bowed briefly and then ran as quickly as she could out of the office. The violet eyes continued to stare at the documents, as though the owner thought that if he gave them enough glare, they would vanish. Unfortunately for him, the paperwork persisted. The Uzumaki heard a familiar and humorous voice say, "You know, if you didn't keep scaring away every woman that looks at you, you might actually get laid once in a while." Kenshin knew better than to discuss his sexual life with Sano. "What do you want, Sano? As you can see, I'm rather busy." Sano laughed and said, "I can see that. Your old man's still making you do all his paperwork, huh?" "Yes." Kenshin snarled. "I thought he would get over it by now." "Oh, I'm sure he did. My father is just enjoying his free time a little too much, but today is the last day I have left of this torture." "Yeah, I get now why you never really wanted to be daimyo. It's a pretty boring job." Kenshin questioned, "Is there a reason you're here, Sano?" Sano said in a tone that was no longer amused, "Today is the day. You don't have to go alone. You know I can go with you if you like." To Sano's surprise, Kenshin responded, "I'm not going alone this year. I plan on asking Naruto to accompany me." When his sister Kushina was living, Kenshin only ever brought her to this yearly appointment. "That means you'll have to tell him what happened. You know that, right?" Sano responded. "I know, well, I know how hard it is for you to talk about it. Naruto will understand, I'm sure of it." "Thanks, Sano. I'll leave you to your work then, later Kenshin." Reluctantly, Kenshin went back to work after watching his oldest friend leave the room. Naruto complained, "I swear, she's going to kill me one of these days," while Haku attended to the numerous wounds he had sustained during weapons training. After a training session with Shiger, he, Haku, and Kimimaro were seated in one of the training rooms. "Naruto-sama, I'm sure that Shiger-sensei is much too careful for any of us to get seriously hurt," Haku replied. Although Naruto didn't appear persuaded, he didn't bother to argue because he was aware of Haku's admiration for Shiger. "It looks like your healing ability is taking care of your injuries just fine, Naruto-sama. I told you I didn't need medical attention, Haku-chan. You can never be too careful with your health and safety, Naruto-sama, right Kimimaro?" replied Haku while Naruto muttered something that sounded like, "Traitor." Kimimaro just nodded. Naruto got up from where they were sitting and said, "All right, can we leave now? I have to get ready because my uncle needs me to accompany him somewhere later." Haku questioned Naruto as they were leaving the training room. "Naruto-sama, did you receive another letter from Hinata-sama? She is coming to visit soon, is she not?" Naruto's face lit up with a broad smile. Although Naruto was pleased to have Haku and Kimimaro as friends, he still missed Hinata, who would always be his first friend. "Yes, she is. Hinata told me that the academy is almost out for the summer and she and her family will be arriving in a couple of weeks. I'm really looking forward to seeing her again." Haku added, "I also look forward to meeting the girl that will one day be Naruto-sama's wife," which made Naruto flush for Naruto. It was still strange to consider that. "Hinata is really nice. I'm sure you both will like her. My grandfather is planning a big party because her birthday will be a few days after they arrive." The three of them kept discussing what the upcoming weeks with the Hyuga visitors would entail, though Kimimaro did so to a much lesser degree. The idea was what mattered. Naruto told his friends everything, and they did the same. A few hours later, Naruto was walking with his uncle in a previously unexplored area of the People's Palace. It goes without saying that Naruto had never seen many parts of a palace this size. But this time, there were multiple guards watching the final door they entered, and once they were inside, no one was there. All Naruto knew for certain was that they were far below the ground floor. In one of the palace's lowest floors they passed through a spacious hallway that was well lit by the numerous torches lining the walls. The white marble used for the walls was the same as that used in the Garden of Life, but here it had an uncanny glow from the torchlights, whereas in the garden the stone glowed with life. When they reached a massive, old wooden door with the Uzumaki crest on it, they came to a stop. Then Naruto asked, "Where are we, uncle?" "We are in the final resting place of the members of the Uzumaki clan," stated Kenshin. Naruto's eyes enlarged a bit. His uncle wanted him to come by himself because of this. Although Naruto was aware that the clan's founder was interred in the Garden of Life, he never really inquired about the other members of the Uzumaki clan. He had the solution now. The door opened slowly after Kenshin touched a seal with his palm, which briefly glowed. "Let's go." The sight of the cavernous Uzumaki crypt was breathtaking. Similar to the one in the Garden of Life, Naruto could see hundreds of tombs arranged in straight rows. In silence, Kenshin guided Naruto farther into the crypt. Naruto saw that there were some commonalities among all the tombs. The Uzumaki crest was carved on the front of each one, and statues of men, women, and occasionally children stood vertically above the coffin, seemingly watching over it. Naruto also observed that almost every tomb had a sword or, in a few instances, other weapons lying on it. It is obvious that the tombs Naruto and Kenshin were walking toward were much older than the ones he could see in the opposite direction. Naruto noticed some empty areas to his left, which he assumed were for the construction of future tombs. When a member of the Uzumaki clan is born, or added by marriage, a place is prepared for them in this crypt. The hundreds of statues here have been sculpted by our finest artists in the likenesses of our clan members to honor our fallen, Kenshin said with more emotion in his voice than was typically heard. After that, Naruto began to focus more on the faces on the statues. These were his family members, his ancestors. Naruto almost bumped into his uncle, who had stopped walking, because he was so preoccupied with the statues. Kenshin paused beside the long-haired woman's statue. She was quite attractive and about his uncle's age. "This is my mother, your grandmother," he replied. "Grandmother?" inquired Naruto. Naruto's eyes began to well up with tears. His grandmother was seldom mentioned, but his grandfather had frequently talked to him about his mother Kushina. Naruto didn't know much about her. "She died while giving birth to me. I never met my mother, much like you never met yours. Father took her loss very hard and hardly ever speaks of her. Well, little I do know about her, like you, I learned from others." Naruto said nothing because he was at a loss for words. He did observe that his grandmother's tomb was followed by 3 empty ones on the left. Naruto recognized that they were probably for his uncle and grandfather. "And your mother should have been here," Kenshin said, gesturing to the next empty tomb. "The leaf refused to return her body, claiming that when she married your father she joined his clan." "They're technically correct, but that doesn't lessen our anger over it." Naruto was also furious. His mother ought to be here with him and her family. This was just one more reason to never put your trust in that establishment again. Naruto would eventually make sure the leaf paid for their repeated betrayals of the Uzumaki clan. Before noticing that his uncle had moved past the deserted tombs to stand in front of what appeared to be the most recent additions to the Uzumaki crypt, Naruto was about to ask a question. Kenshin was standing in front of the tomb of a very attractive young woman in her early 20s who had long hair and was wearing a regal kimono. The little statue on the woman's tomb next to Naruto's was what broke his heart. It was a statue of a young boy, no more than 4 or 5 years old, with his hair pulled back in a ponytail, just like his uncle's. Naruto witnessed his uncle touching the young boy's grave for the first time in his memory. Naruto turned to face his uncle and was not greeted by a cold, stony stare or a piercing gaze. Naruto noticed genuine emotion in his uncle's face for the first time. He also noticed that his uncle's eyes were filled with intense, nearly unbearable pain. Naruto, who already dreaded the response, asked, "Who are they?" "Kaoru and Yahiko Uzumaki, my wife and son." In an attempt to stop the tears that were streaming down his face, Naruto closed his eyes. 2 more members of his family had been taken from him, but more significantly, from his uncle. Naruto was unaware of what had happened, but he could tell it was tragic by the anguish in his uncle's eyes. "Today is the anniversary of their deaths. You are the only one other than your mother that I have brought with me." Despite his fear of the response, Naruto asked the question, "What happened?" For a while, Kenshin kept his eyes fixed on the tombs of his departed family members and remained silent. Kenshin finally spoke after a long pause. I met Kaoru when we were children. Her father was the head of the Kamiya clan and a captain of the Guardian Corps. We couldn't stand each other, mainly because I was an arrogant jerk and she never let me get away with anything. She didn't care if I was the prince. If I did something she didn't like, she wasn't afraid to let me hear it, often by yelling, emphatically. She sounded like someone he would get along with, so Naruto grinned at that. She, Sano, and I became friends when I was a little older than you are now. When we were 13, Kaoru's father was killed during the Third Great Ninja War. She and I became closer, and when we were 16 I asked her to marry me. When she accepted, it was the happiest day of my life. 2 years later our son Yahiko was born. The next 4 years of my life were the best I can remember. Naruto questioned. Something bad happened, didn't it? Kenshin gave a nod. We were on a routine diplomatic mission to the land of demons in the southern continent. As we made our way to the capital, we were confronted by a group of tribal warriors from the land of blades. Small neighbor to the land of demons, they were from a warrior tribe called the Baka Ban Mana. They were blade masters that prided themselves on being the best. You see, even there I had become famous as a swordsman, often called one of the best in the world. Their leader wanted to prove his strength by defeating me. Naruto questioned. And they attacked you? No, there were over 30 samurai with me and only a dozen of them I didn't want it to be a slaughter, so I agreed to duel their leader. He was very good, but I beat him. Did you kill him? No, and that was the biggest mistake of my life? I don't get it, Naruto uttered. To the Baka Ban Mana there is no greatest dishonor than to be defeated in battle, except to be spared by an opponent. They didn't believe in retreating or surrendering. It was win the battle or die trying. When the leader left vowing vengeance, I never really believed anything would come of it. I was mistaken. Kenshin paused to gather his thoughts before continuing. We were a few miles from the capital when they came. Over 100 of them came from the forest we were traveling through. I led the samurai and defended the carriage, allowing it to escape, but it was a trap. I should have known something was wrong because the leader never came after me. He went after my family. I tried to get to them. Eventually I did, but it was too late. The moment he killed my family they all fled back into the trees, all except one. He stayed to tell me that this was payback for disgracing their leader's honor. That bastard. How could he talk about honor when they killed a child? Shouted Naruto. He didn't live long enough to explain himself. My men killed him immediately, stated Kenshin. Naruto inquired, did grandfather declare war on Blade Country? No. Why the hell not? Because there was no need. I took care of it. I sent my family's bodies to the capital and went after them. I found them that very night, stated Kenshin. Naruto questioned, you went alone? No, I went with a handful of my samurai that refused to let me go alone. I sometimes wished I hadn't let them follow me. What do you mean? Do you know why I'm called Naruto and why people treat me like a monster whenever I leave Whirlpool? They call you the Batosai because you have mastered the hidden Mitsurugi style. Naruto had observed that people were afraid of his uncle, but he assumed it was because he is so strong. However, it turns out there was more to it than that. Yes, but they also use a different name for me. I'm referred to as Batosai, the Manslayer, and because of what I did to Baka Ban Mana, they refer to me by that name. Despite feeling a chill, Naruto posed the query. What did you do? Before responding, his uncle gazed at his family's statues for a considerable amount of time. I was furious and depressed. I allowed my hatred and rage to control me, and we Uzumaki are feared for our rage. Their village was easy to locate. The entire village was present, fully celebrating a significant triumph. Something in me broke when I saw that, and I did something that will shame me forever, Naruto said, observing a sad and ashamed expression on his uncle's face as Kenshin paused. They were celebrating the murder of my family. Even though Naruto knew what would happen would be terrible, he was still unprepared for what his uncle would reveal as he stared at him. Every man, woman, and child in the village was killed by me that night. All of the Baka Ban Mana were dead at my feet. No. Naruto gasps in astonishment. In my mind, it was a blur. I was walking toward the village one moment, and the next I knew, I was standing in the center of it. Bodies all over the place. Kenshin paused for a moment before continuing. I sometimes see their faces. The fear in their eyes. I remember rage like nothing I have ever felt coursing through me, and I embraced it, feeding off of it. I saw the expression on a mother's face as she held her child in her arms, right before I used my blade to cut them both in half. As he put a hand on a tomb to keep himself upright, Naruto whispered, Dear Kami, unable to believe what he was hearing. Everyone has darkness inside of them, and if you allow it to consume you, it will do so. I share my suffering and shame with you in order to prevent you from making the same error that I did. Naruto, never allow hatred and rage to control you, and never voluntarily seek out violence. However, if an adversary poses a threat, eliminate them. If not, you might live your entire life regretting it. Before departing the Uzumaki crypt, Naruto and his uncle prayed in silence for a while. Naruto felt a little better about his uncle and understood why he was the way he was. He wished that his uncle had not experienced such tragedy, but life was unfair, and he promised himself that he would protect his family and that Kami would have mercy on anyone who tried to harm his loved ones because Naruto would not. A few days later, Naruto sat beside his grandfather, waiting for Hinata and her family to arrive. Haku and Kimimaro stood guard behind him, both dressed in formal kimonos. Although Naruto tried not to show his excitement, his family and friends knew how thrilled he was to see the Hyuga heiress again when the door to the throne room opened and a group of people in white robes were led in. His face lit up at the sight of the older of the two girls in the group, who was even more beautiful than Naruto remembered. Hinata gave him a shy smile, her face flushed, which only made Naruto happier. Following the formal introductions and greetings, Naruto led Hinata to a small balcony with a view of the city. Haku and Kimimaro trailed behind after being by himself. Naruto finally behaved more like himself. "Hi, Hinata. It's great to see you again at last. It's hard to believe that nearly a year has passed," Naruto said. With a smile on her face, Hinata said, "I missed you to Naruto-kun." Naruto looked at the white-haired boy and dark-haired girl standing guard at the door, and nearly slapped himself for forgetting to introduce his friends. "These are my vassals, Hinata-heim, but more significantly, they are my closest friends. This is the Kagaya clan's Kimimaro," Naruto said, gesturing for Kimimaro to approach. With a tone of voice that reminded Hinata of Shino, Kimimaro approached her and bowed. "It is an honor to meet you, Hinata-sama," he said. "It's good to meet you at last, too, Kimimaro-san." In his letters, Naruto frequently mentions you. Kimimaro stepped back to stand beside Haku and gave Hinata another bow. Naruto remarked, "And this is Haku of the Yuki clan," gesturing for Haku to come forward. "It is an honor to finally meet you, Hinata-sama," Haku said, bowing and grinning. "It is nice to meet you as well, Haku-san," Hinata said, trying desperately to stifle the jealousy that was rising in her chest. Haku was very pretty, prettier than her, Hinata thought, and this girl gets to spend every day with Naruto. Hinata had to remind herself of her mother's words. It wouldn't be fair to Haku, and it wouldn't be fair to Naruto if she treated his friend disrespectfully for no apparent reason. Still, why was Haku so beautiful? Over the course of the following few days, Hinata joined Naruto and his friends for training and leisure. She was pleased to discover that, after putting aside her mild jealousy of Haku, she actually got along well with the black-haired ice user. Before the week was over, Hinata was making a close friendship with a girl her own age for the first time in her life. Like Naruto on his birthday the last time she was here, Hinata's birthday was celebrated with a lavish party in the palace, attended by a number of nobles and other important people, but she spent most of her time with Naruto, his friends, and her own family. The only gift that Hinata truly cared about was the one that Naruto gave her, a gorgeous gold bracelet with 2 charms on it, one of which was a replica of the Uzumaki crest, and the other was the Hyuga crest. Hinata loved it. The rest of the summer passed too fast for Hinata's taste. Naruto's birthday was a huge celebration held throughout the city, and she spent the entire day with him, Haku, and Kimimaro, exploring the city and interacting with the locals. She also enjoyed training with some of Naruto's teachers, including Kurama, who was a very nice man, Oryu, who was fair but strict, Urahara and Sanosuke, Shigur, who was different, and Hiei, who was frightening. When Hinata told Naruto about the Uchiha massacre, Naruto told her that he had heard about it and that he didn't really care about the Leaf Village, but he knew that Hinata cared about her home, so he made sure not to say anything offensive about it. It had been enjoyable, but now that Hinata and her family were returning home, both Naruto and Hinata were upset. Naruto particularly enjoyed the stories about Kiba pulling practical jokes, but he made sure to let Hinata know that he and his friend had pulled better ones. Naruto remarked, "So it's finally time for you to go home?" Hinata replied, "Yes, I have to return to school soon." Naruto said, "I wish you could stay here the whole time, as he would miss Hinata's company." "I also wish we could have more time together," she said. "Perhaps you could come to my village someday and meet my friends." Naruto had kept his hatred of the Leaf Village a secret from Hinata because he knew it would anger her. Besides, if he was able to spend every day with Hinata, it might be worth going back to that hellhole, because if someone tried to hurt him now, they would not be confronted by a helpless child but rather by an Uzumaki. While Hinata was a genin for the Leaf Village and Naruto would not have that option until they were both 12, he said, "Maybe someday soon my grandfather will allow me to visit," fully aware that hell would freeze over before then. After spending the remainder of the day with Hinata, Naruto turned to his grandfather and spoke in a tone that was unusual for the young blonde, and when it came time to bid Hinata farewell, he stood on the dock while the ship carrying his fiancée drew farther and farther away. Grandfather, I have made my decision. What was the decision about, Naruto? Genryusai inquired. About whether or not I will go to the Leaf Village when I turn 12, I have decided that I will go, Naruto replied. The statement, Naruto, I think it's too soon to be making this kind of choice in your future, was unexpected by Genryusai. My future grandfather is Hinata and I don't want to be unable to spend more than a few months of the year with you until we're 16. Naruto, if you got to the Leaf, your uncle and I would have to remain here. You would have to go alone. According to Naruto, Hinata will be there with me. And he would have us. Uzumaki turned to see Kimimaro and Haku standing behind them, both of them wearing determined expressions. Wherever Naruto-sama goes, we go, Haku said, and Kimimaro nodded. Kimimaro said, anyone who dares to try and hurt Naruto-sama will have to go through us first, with a voice that was unusually emotional. With these two by his side, maybe Naruto would be able to return to the Leaf. Genryusai did promise that it would be Naruto's choice, but Naruto had apparently already made the decision, so Genryusai could only prepare him as best he could. Naruto grinned proudly and waterily at his friends, and Genryusai grinned at the kids as well. The three kids braced themselves for whatever Genryusai had in store for them when he said, well, if you're dead set on going to the Leaf Village, I guess there is only one thing I can say to you. Well, you better be ready, because this means I'm going to double your training for the next 4 years. They won't know what hit them by the time you all visit Leaf Village. No one knew what would happen when Naruto Uzumaki returned to the Leaf Village, but one thing was certain. It was going to be interesting. If nothing else, Haku and Kimimaro were both pleased to be permitted to stay by Naruto's side, and Naruto cheered as his friends silently agreed. Time passed quickly, and Naruto's departure date from Whirlpool was drawing near. Hinata would become a genin in 3 months, and Naruto would be moving to the Leaf Village to live with her. Genryusai had called this meeting with all of Naruto's teachers. For that reason, the best course of action was to be decided by them. Thank you all for coming. As all of you know, in 3 months Naruto and his friends will go to the Leaf as part of the deal that was made when he was retrieved from there several years ago. The reason I have called you all here is because I have found a way to limit the influence that the Leaf will have on Naruto after reviewing our alliance with the Leaf and Fire Country, as well as other international agreements. I believe we have found the perfect way to limit the control the Leaf will have over Naruto. And how will we accomplish that, Daimyo-sama? Replied Uryu. Genryusai grinned. While rare, it's not unheard of for allied nations to send armed forces to serve under another nation's banner for carefully predetermined periods of time. Well, that's exactly what we will do. Naruto will be there for a carefully predetermined amount of time. And how will this be any different than before, other than to limit the time Naruto spends in the Leaf? Replied Kurama. Oh, it will do more than that, Kurama. You see, by sending Naruto as part of a military alliance-based agreement, it will allow Naruto and his friends to go as active Whirlpool ninja to help our ally nation. That means that while they will follow the Hokage's wishes while in the Leaf Village, their loyalty and orders will always be to and from Whirlpool first, stated Genryusai. It also means that the Hokage won't have free reign to do whatever he wants with them since they are still technically our ninja, said Kenshin. It's a good plan. It only has one minor problem. Whirlpool has no ninja division. They're sure to argue this point, Urahara said. And that is why we are all here. I have decided to officially start a ninja division for the Guardian Corps. I want one of you to become the captain of this new division and as a result, become the official sensei to Naruto's team, stated Genryusai. So, let me see if I have this right. You want one of us to give up our position on the Guardian Corps, so we can become the captain of a division that doesn't exist, just so we can go and babysit the brats when they go to the Leaf. Hiei, what, Kurama? This isn't a real possibility, are you? The Leaf cannot be trusted. Someone has to go to keep an eye on them, replied Kurama. Hiei remarked, if they only need a babysitter, then just send that useless oaf, pointing to Sano. It's not like he actually does anything useful around here. Sano glared at the smaller man and replied, you want to say that again? Short stuff. Just don't blame me when you end up in the hospital again. All you do is eat, sleep, and gamble. Hiei glared back, not wanting to be reminded of what had happened to him during his one and only battle with the Taijutsu master. You're not even formally a Guardian Corps member. Sano grinned broadly and said, you forgot that, unlike you, I'm also a ladies' man. Hiei became even more irate. That's enough, Genryusai said, adding that Sano, who is among the strongest men in the world, was one of our top picks. Since sending one of the Roku Kyoshu will make neighboring countries just as anxious as the Leaf, we regretfully chose not to send him. Sano won't be able to go because we don't want that after the Water Country incident a few years ago. Then this is a difficult choice to make. We all love Naruto, but we all have roles that are vital to the safety and well-being of Whirlpool, replied Uryu. I will go, In mild surprise, everyone turned to face the lone female in the room. Kurama questioned, "Are you sure, Shiger? What about the spy network?" She said, "Yes, I can handle the information without needing to be here. Besides, I like training the children," with a voice that was unusually emotional. Genri Yusai could almost imagine Naruto's dismay upon learning that Shiger would be his official sensei. "Well, that was easier than I thought, and I'm sure Naruto will be very surprised to know who will be his official sensei. This meeting is over, you are all dismissed." In the village of the Leaf. The council was holding its own meeting back in the Leaf village. Whether Naruto would join the Leaf or not was still unknown to the third Hokage. I wanted to talk to the council about what to do because the deadline was almost up. Thank you all for coming. As all of you know, it is almost time for the graduation of the new set of genin. The reason I have called you all here today is because I haven't heard from Whirlpool on whether Naruto will be joining the village. As we all hoped, we need to figure out what to do about convincing the daimyo to allow him to become a ninja of the Leaf. Everyone in the room murmured, and a lot of eyes fell on the Hyuga clan's head. Hiyashi was lying when he said, "I have not been told if the Uzumaki have made a final decision." He was aware that Naruto would be visiting the Leaf and that the Uzumaki were attempting to restrict the Leaf's power over the youngster Hinata, who was unaware that Naruto would be visiting the Leaf village, was also going to be taken by surprise. One of the civilians remarked, "I assumed that your daughter was responsible for luring the boy back to the village." Hiyashi glared at him with a Byakugan-enhanced intensity. "My daughter's relationship with the heir of Whirlpool is of no concern to you." Danzo didn't care about Naruto's relationship with Hinata. He only wanted Naruto here to exert some control over the boy. Her relationship with the Namikaze heir is of great importance to the village. I would have thought after spending every summer there for the last several years she would have made some kind mark on the boy that would make him want to come to our village. As I said, I know nothing more than you. However, I would assume that if the daimyo agrees to let Naruto come to the Leaf, he will do so only under his own terms. After giving Hiyashi's words some thought, everyone in the room couldn't help but agree with him. Hiyashi is right. From what I observed during my visit to Whirlpool, the Uzumaki are very protective of Naruto and will not allow him to come here without some kind of assurances, stated Shikaku Nara. There is no doubt that the Hokage was not looking forward to learning what demands the Uzumaki would make. If that is the case, we will have to deal with them once they make their intentions known. In the academy, the Uchiha massacre had been 4 years ago. Sasuke Uchiha, the only survivor, has been working tirelessly over the years to achieve one goal: to become strong enough to kill him. But as he stood there during taijutsu training, observing yet another pair of losers, Sasuke realized that it would take longer than he had anticipated to acquire the power he would need to achieve his objective. Sasuke believed that he would be able to gain strength more quickly after joining a team and receiving training from a jonin. As Sasuke contemplated his predicament, he saw the next two classmates approach the ring. Hinata Hyuga, the heiress of the Hyuga clan and the only girl in the class that Sasuke didn't consider a worthless fangirl, and an unknown classmate standing in her way. Sasuke considered the girl with the dark hair as he watched the match start. Sasuke's own father had advised him to watch out for her when he first started the academy. Sasuke was initially perplexed by his father's question, but as time went on, he realized why the girl's strength, intelligence, and academic success made her classmates, well, the female classmates, envious. Sasuke observed how Hinata effortlessly evaded her opponent's blows while moving with the grace and skill of a dancer. At that moment, Sasuke started to reflect. He had a purpose besides murdering him. Restoring his clan was the aim, and he would require a wife to accomplish this. He was unable to marry just anybody. When Sasuke looked around, he saw two girls, one with pink hair and the other with blonde hair, and he shuddered in his head at the sight. Like the people he was surrounded by on a daily basis, his wife couldn't be a pitiful loser. He turned to face Hinata again. She was powerful and descended from a noble clan with a strong lineage. Sasuke also believed that Hinata was extremely attractive and would only get more so as she aged. Hinata was simply the best. She was strong, intelligent, beautiful, and born into a noble family. Only Hinata was qualified to become the Uchiha clan's future matriarch. Sasuke decided to focus on his second goal in the interim since he had no idea how long it would take him to gain the strength necessary to finish his first. As was customary at school, Hinata was having lunch with her friends. Kiba was whining once more about how eager he was to graduate and join a team. Hinata was excited to become a genin and begin her life. The only depressing aspect was that she wouldn't be able to visit her Naruto-kun at Whirlpool this year. She was also aware that he would never voluntarily visit this place. Naruto had told her everything that the Leaf Village had done to him and his clan over the years. Hinata had to acknowledge that her perception of the Leaf had been profoundly impacted by his stories. Hinata was too preoccupied with Naruto to notice that she and her friends were being approached. Snarling, "What the hell do you want?" Kiba, who detested Sasuke for being a cocky jerk, said. Then Hinata saw Sasuke standing with a resolute expression on his face in front of her and her friends. "My business isn't with you, mutt, so why don't you run along?" Sasuke grumbled. As Kiba stood up to fight, he screamed, "Bastard," but Shino and Hinata grabbed him before he could do so. In an attempt to defuse the situation, Shino said, "If you have no business with us, perhaps you should leave. It would do you no good to remain here. My business is with Hinata, and it's a private matter that doesn't concern either of you. I would like to speak to her alone, so both of you leave." Since Hinata was taken aback by Sasuke's desire to speak with her, she took a moment to respond before Kiba did so on her behalf. Hinata was also intrigued by the statement, "Like hell we're going to leave her alone with you. Why do you even want to talk to her alone? You never want to talk to anyone?" Sasuke stayed away from all interactions with his classmates unless the teachers made him. The entire class was now paying close attention to the yelling and watching the scene with great interest. Sasuke saw this and sighed in frustration. "So much for keeping this a secret. Hello Hinata. I wanted to tell you that you fought well today. I see that you have grown very strong over our time in the academy." "Thank you Sasuke, you also fought well today." Sasuke had never given a compliment since his family died, so Hinata wasn't sure what he wanted. Hinata was aware of the irate expressions on her fellow kunoichi. "Well, they'll be upset with me once more." Hinata reasoned that at least graduation was just a few months away. "Thank you anyway. I wanted to tell you that I would like to get to know you better and would like to ask you out on a date," he replied. This was certainly not what Hinata had anticipated. Shouts of, "What, and, is he serious?" could be heard everywhere, so she wasn't alone either. Though flattered, Hinata had to find a way to tell Sasuke that she wasn't interested because she was happy with Naruto. "I'm honored B." To avoid letting Hinata finish, Sasuke interrupted her, saying, "Great, what time should I?" something he would later come to regret. Hinata said, "But I will have to decline," completing her statement. Sasuke finally took notice of what she was saying when she asked, "Pick you up?" "What, why?" To the surprise and horror of the other girls, Hinata revealed, "I'm afraid I have no desire to date you Sasuke." She was blasphemous. "I'm currently in a serious relationship with someone. He not only has my parents' approval but the approval of my entire clan." When he heard some of the guys snickering around him, taking pleasure in the haughty Uchiha's humiliation, Sasuke's pride was stung and his anger flared. After squinting at Hinata, Sasuke turned to face her friends. Given that Hinata rarely spoke to anyone else, Sasuke knew she had to be referring to one of them. Sasuke became even more enraged upon learning that she was turning him down for one of these losers. With his nostrils flaring in outrage, Sasuke yelled, "So you would rather date one of these pathetic losers over me? An elite Uchiha? What did you say, you bastard?" "Shino, let me go, I'm going to kick his ass," said Kiba. Shino refused to let him leave. "I would appreciate it if you didn't insult my friends, for they're just that, my friends," Hinata replied. After giving them a final sneer, Sasuke decided to vent his annoyance on a training post. After Sasuke departed, Hinata assisted Shino in attempting to appease a furious Kiba. The three friends were receiving death glares from a group of Uchiha fangirls, but none of them noticed. Sakura, like all the Uchiha fangirls, was incensed and yelled, "I don't believe it. Why would Sasuke ask out that pale-eyed freak?" Disbelievingly, Ino remarked, "I can't believe she actually turned him down." Sakura received nods of agreement from most of the other girls when she said, "Oh please, she is probably playing hard to get." She was lying about having a boyfriend. The only guys she hangs around are those two creeps. One smells as bad as his dog and the other is just plain weird. "We should do something to teach her a lesson," one of the group's girls stated. Sakura and the others agreed, saying, "Yeah, but what are we going to do to her? It has to be good enough that she learns to stay away from Sasuke." Ino was the only one who appeared anxious. "I don't think it's a good idea, guys," Ino replied. Sakura screamed, "What? Don't you care about Sasuke-kun, Ino pig?" "Of course I do, forehead, but haven't you seen how the village treats Hinata? Everyone acts like she is some kind of princess or something. I remember a few years ago when she beat me in a sparring match. I was planning to get her back for it and my dad overheard me and he freaked out. He ordered me to stay away from her and not cause trouble for our clan. When I asked what he meant, he only said that Hinata Hyuga was very important to the whole village because her clan is allied with a very powerful and prestigious clan. He told me that I should do my best to be friends with Hinata, but I ignored him." Now that you mention it, my mom basically told me the same thing when I started the academy. She told me to do my best to make friends with Hinata too. Sakura replied. The same was said by a number of the other girls who had relatives in the council. "Look Sakura, I don't like Hinata either, but the way her clan is connected, it would be stupid to attack her. What if she gets the Hokage to ban us from graduating? replied Ino. All of the girls' horrified expressions were sufficient response. I say we all keep an eye on her, and if she is trying something with Sasuke-kun, then we'll make a move. With the issue resolved, the group set out to locate Sasuke in the hopes of comforting the unfortunate Uchiha. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I still don't like her though. The bug that had been hovering over them, listening to every word, went unnoticed by any of them. It was 2 months before Whirlpool sent word to the Leaf Village as promised. The Hokage convened a meeting to address the Uzumaki's demand. As all of you know by now, I have received word from the Uzumaki daimyo in regards to Naruto. He has agreed to let him come, as long as some conditions are made. Shibi Aburame questioned, what kind of conditions, Lord Hokage? It was expected, so no one was upset. The daimyo expects Naruto to be received as his station as a prince of Whirlpool, so we will hold a ceremony and introduce him when he arrives to the village. Once more, this was accomplished with ease, and nobody in the council voiced any objections. Second is that Naruto will live in his parents' old home, and it is expected to be ready for him when he arrives. Concern was raised by the statement. Third is that Naruto will bring 2 bodyguards that will be with him at all times. A civilian inquired, how will he be going on missions with 2 bodyguards? Yes, surely the Jonin sensei we assigned to him will be enough protection for him, replied another. When the Hokage declared, all conditions are non-negotiable, if we don't agree to them Naruto will not be coming to the village, everyone was essentially silenced. Sarutobi anticipated what would happen next. The final condition is that Naruto will not be here as a leaf ninja but as a ninja of Whirlpool. As he had anticipated, the room erupted in shouting and yelling. After allowing the argument to go on for a while, he demanded silence and order. How can they even ask this? Whirlpool doesn't even have ninja, replied Homura. Apparently the daimyo started a ninja division months ago. Now they're using the international treaty as a loophole to limit what we can ask of Naruto. So basically he will be a foreign shinobi representing an allied nation, Shikaku Nara said. The Hokage replied, yes, it seems that will be the case. Then we'll need to find other ways to give him ties to our village. If we can get him to agree to take part in the CRA and get him to choose a second wife from this village, it would go a long way to cement his loyalty to the Leaf, stated Kaharu. The meeting came to an end when the Hokage stated, we will deal with it once Naruto arrives. For now we have some preparations to make. In the Whirlpool, in order to begin their journey to the Leaf Village, Naruto, Kimimaro, and Haku were waiting for their sensei to arrive at the Death Gates the day before. They had bid farewell to the residents of Whirlpool at a massive farewell party. Even though Naruto still detested the thought of going back to the Leaf and would miss his home, he was excited to see Hinata. Why are they taking so long? They ought to be here by now, a frustrated Naruto uttered. I'm sure they'll be here soon. I just wonder who was chosen to be our sensei. I know they wanted to keep it a surprise, but I would like to know who is going to continue to teach us, Haku replied. Naruto was about to remark on that when he noticed his family and their teachers heading their way. Naruto remarked, it's about time you guys got here. Urahara questioned, I thought we taught you to be patient, Naruto? In response, he said, you also taught me to be on time, sensei. Several of his teachers laughed at this. Genryusai's gaze shifted to his grandchild. Over the past 7 years since coming to Whirlpool, he had undergone significant change. From a malnourished and mistreated child, Naruto had grown into a strong, self-assured, and morally upright young man. As the 3 of them stood there, dressed in the same dark blue kimonos they wore for training, the Uzumaki daimyo was extremely proud of his grandson and his friends. They chose that as their uniform because they wanted to maintain the samurai appearance even in a ninja village, in addition to the fact that they felt comfortable wearing it. Genryusai Uzumaki, daimyo of the land of Whirlpool, extended his hand towards them, loosely holding 3 identical ninja headbands. We wanted to let all 3 of you know how proud we are. I know how difficult it will be for all of you to be away from home, especially for you, Naruto. I'm sure, however, that all of you will make Whirlpool proud. These resembled headbands in many ways. They were identified as Whirlpool Ninja by their dark blue straps, which matched their kimonos, and a metal plate in the middle, similar to other ninja headbands but with the Uzumaki crest. Trying not to cry in front of everyone, Naruto replied, thank you, grandfather. We will try our best to make you and Whirlpool proud. Naruto proudly put his headband on his forehead and gave the others to his friends, showing them off to everyone. Kimimaro and Haku swiftly followed suit, standing proudly on either side of Naruto. I guess all that is left is to let you know who will be your sensei for the duration of your stay in the Leaf, Genryusai replied. With amused expressions on their faces, Naruto gazed expectantly at his teachers. At that moment, he became aware that one of his instructors was absent. Oh no, not even her. Naruto thought. A monotone voice whispered in his ear before he could express his concern. Naruto went pale and turned slowly to see Shigure standing beside him with a whirlpool headband around her neck. Shigure will not have to miss her students. Shigure will keep training them but will have to try harder from now on. Since Shigure was one of her favorite teachers, Naruto saw that Haku was very happy. Kimimaro appeared completely unconcerned. Naruto said, Shigure-sensei, that's great, with a tense excitement that doesn't quite persuade. Shigure said, let's go, and started to cross the great Uzumaki bridge. Naruto let out a sigh. He mumbled, this just keeps getting better and better. Naruto and his friends followed Shigure after saying their final goodbyes to their teachers and relatives. An uncontrollable smile spread across Naruto's face. He would soon return to the Leaf and refuse to accept any nonsense from anyone. More significantly, he would soon get to see his Hinata home. A few days later in the village of the Leaf, Hinata was thrilled. She graduated from the academy today after finishing her final exams. She was positive that she had performed well. The scowling boy who sat a few seats away from her was the only dark spot on this otherwise sunny day. Her rejection had not gone over well with Sasuke. He had been more vicious than usual over the past 2 months. He even broke one of Kiba's arms while they were sparring, nor had Sasuke stopped pestering her about going out with him. He even went so far as to request that she and her father meet. Fortunately, Hiyashi had informed Sasuke that Hinata was already seeing someone he liked, so she was not available to date anyone else after that. Sasuke had somewhat retreated and was content to glare at her occasionally. A few hours later, Hinata and her friends proudly wore ninja headbands as they walked out at the compound. Hinata's parents were getting ready for a celebration of her graduation before departing to celebrate with their respective clans. Kiba and Shino had offered to walk Hinata home. They encountered an unexpected and unwanted individual on their way to the Hyuga clan's compound in the alley they were entering. Sasuke Uchiha was leaning comfortably against a wall. Kiba yelled, "What the hell are you doing here, Uchiha?" Akamaru growled at Sasuke in response. Between Hinata and Sasuke, Kiba said, "None of your business, mutt, now step aside." "What do you want, Sasuke? I have already told you I'm not interested in dating you, and my father has already told you that. I have found a way to get around your father and your lie as an official adult. Now that I'm a ninja, I can go to your clan's council and arrange for a marriage contract. If the Hyuga clan's laws are like the Uchiha's, then the elders can overrule the head's decision if it benefits the clan, and marrying me will benefit the Hyuga more than marrying one of these losers," he stated, glaring at Kiba and Shino. Hinata was aware that Sasuke's analysis of clan laws was accurate, but she was also aware that the Uzumaki clan was protecting her after avoiding Kiba. Hinata walked directly in front of Sasuke and met his eyes with conviction. She told him, "I marry you." Sasuke took her arm roughly before she could say anything more. She was screamed at by him, "You will be my wife whether you like it or not." Something else struck Sasuke's face, causing him to skid across the floor as Kiba and Shino moved to assist Hinata. Kiba and Shino both looked around to see who had done it. They noticed a boy their age with a sophisticated sword fastened to his hip and a blue kimono. He was giving the Uchiha a smoldering glare with his blue eyes and blonde hair. His right elbow was raised, indicating that he had struck Sasuke in the face. Shino saw that he was wearing a headband with a symbol that was somewhat different but similar to the Leaf Villages. "You touch her again, I'm taking your hand," the blonde said. In utter shock, Hinata stammered, "And Naruto-kun?" "Hello Hinata Haim, you look even more beautiful than last time I saw you," laughed Naruto. Hinata's surprise turned to happiness, and she threw herself at Naruto and gave him a hug while squealing with delight. Naruto gave her a warm embrace in return. Sasuke had recovered his temper by this point, just in time to witness Hinata embracing a blonde child he had never seen before. Sasuke snarled and charged at them as his rage flared, but he was only able to take a few steps before he had to freeze. A pointy, sharp object was painfully pressed against Sasuke's neck, and another against his chest. A bone-like sword was pressed against Sasuke's chest when he looked down, and a senbon was pressed against his neck when he looked to his left. "You won't hurt Naruto-sama," Haku declared. She and Kimimaro had acted swiftly to prevent their friend from being attacked by this boy. "Let him go, guys, he's no threat. I was just letting him know not to touch my hime," Naruto said reluctantly. Haku and Kimimaro released Sasuke and hurried to stand beside Naruto. Kiba said, "So, I guess you're Naruto, huh?" 2 years ago, Hinata had informed them about Naruto and the arranged union of Naruto and Hinata. Hinata was informed by Shino and Kiba that they were pleased for her as long as she was content. Akamaru barked angrily, "Yes, I am. You two are Kiba and Shino, right? Hinata has told me a lot about you two." "Sorry, she told me about the three of you," Naruto said, winking at the puppy who appeared pleased to be mentioned. "Who do you think you are, fool? You dare attack me? I'm Sasuke Uchiha of the great Uchiha clan. I'm an elite ninja of the Leaf Village." screamed Sasuke. Naruto's eyebrow went up. Elite. I thought you were just a newly graduated genin. If you're not, then this village is more pathetic than I thought, replied Naruto. Sasuke became aware of the headbands Naruto and the others were wearing at that moment. Where the hell are you from? I have never seen that headband before. To which Naruto replied, don't worry about it, you'll find out soon enough. Come on Hinata-han, let me take you home. I look forward to seeing your parents and Hanabi-chan. Before Sasuke could say anything, they all vanished using the body flicker technique. He wasn't going to be ignored and forced to yell at them. Sasuke could only sulk inside and swear that the next time he saw the blonde, he would treat him with respect. Shino and Kiba were taken aback when Haku and Kimimaro grabbed their shoulders and took them away, even though the group had appeared a few streets away from where they had been before. Kiba complained, man, I wish I knew how to do that. I'm sure once we are introduced to our teams we will be able to learn many new things, Shino said. Kiba remarked, I hope we get to be on the same team, as the group headed toward the Hyuga compound. Me too, Hinata replied, adding, I would like that as well, Shino said. Well, the three of you would make a great tracking team, Haku replied while Kiba gaped at the stunning girl. Shino nodded in agreement. They kept chit-chatting as Hinata and Naruto plodded together until they arrived at the Hyuga compound. After saying goodbye to everyone, Shino and Kiba went to see their families. Naruto and his friends were escorted by Hinata to meet her parents. Mother, father, look, it's Naruto-kun, Hinata exclaimed with joy. Her parents both grinned. I see you made it early, Naruto-kun, Hana said, giving him a warm embrace. I did. Sensei is meeting with the Hokage to get the keys to my parents' home. I didn't want to see any of the village leaders until tomorrow, so we went to look for Hinata-han. Well then all of you will join us for Hinata's party to celebrate her graduation, Hiyashi replied. Naruto concurred, understanding that this would be his last day of being unburdened by this village for some time. Even though Naruto didn't enjoy being here, he realized that being with Hinata would make any difficulties he faced worthwhile. The Hokage learned that the Whirlpool ninja had reached the village while Naruto and his group were having a great time at the Hyuga compound. As soon as Naruto returned to the village, the third Hokage summoned the council to a meeting. It was crucial that Naruto made a good impression immediately after his return. As you all must have heard, Naruto and his entourage have arrived in the village. They are waiting outside the door. I will only say this once. We get one chance to make a good first impression, so let's not do anything that will jeopardize Naruto's desire to be a part of our village. A civilian council member questioned, have we decided on whose team we will be placing the boy? There were a lot of whispers in the room when the Hokage said, I have chosen to place him under Kakashi Hitaki. Kakashi was a student of Naruto's father, and is the best person to tell Naruto of the love his parents had for our village. As for his teammates, it will be Hinata Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha. A council member cried out, the heirs of the Hyuga, Uchiha, and Namikaze on the same team. They could be the next Sannin. The sentiment appeared to be shared by many in the room. While the Hyuga heir I'm sure was chosen for obvious reasons, what might have led you to pick the Uchiha heir as the third teammate? Sarutobi. Danzo was the one who spoke. Sasuke Uchiha is the rookie of the year and Kakashi is the only leaf ninja that can properly train him in the use of the Sharingan. He will make the perfect third member of the team. As an adult would when he heard a child's wild fantasies, Danzo shook his head. Danzo's obvious disdain for the Hokage caused a stir. Are you truly naive, Sarutobi? Or are you just that behind in your intelligence? To quiet the room, the third held up his hand. And what exactly do you mean by that, Danzo? Sarutobi was aware that Danzo always had a reason for his actions, even though interacting with him was uncomfortable and frequently painful. The room was extremely confused when the speaker said, what I mean is that even I know placing the three of them together will end in blood being spilled within the first team meeting. Care to elaborate, Danzo? And stop with the riddles, what do you know? Replied the Hokage. Everyone in the room looked at Hiyashi and said, I know that for the last 2 months at least, the Uchiha heir has been pursuing a personal relationship with Hinata Hyuga. In his mind, Hiyashi questioned how Danzo knew what he did. Even though he didn't express it externally, Hiyashi vividly recalled that Sasuke had stormed out in a childish fit of rage, and he said, Danzo is correct. I have spoken with the Uchiha heir and informed him that my daughter is not available. He didn't take it well. The room erupted in shouts and arguments as the speaker said, I also know that earlier today there was a confrontation between the Namikaze and Uchiha heirs. It ended with Sasuke Uchiha being attacked by the Namikaze for trying to take liberties with Hinata Hyuga. Looking at the third, Hiyashi said, silence. We will deal with that problem, I assure you, Hiyashi. Now let us welcome our guest, we have much to discuss. The Whirlpool entourage entered after the Hokage motioned for a ninja to open the door. He was surprised. as was the council, apart from Hiyashi, who was struggling to keep a smile on her face. That the only person entering was a stunning woman wearing a small pink kimono. Every ninja in the room knew who she was, if only by reputation, so she didn't need to introduce herself. The ninja leaders knew who this was based on her aura and description. This was Shigeru Kasaka, the Phantom of Whirlpool, the most well-known weapons mistress in the world and the renowned head of Whirlpool's spy network. Sayuki Haruno inquired, "Who are you? And where is Naruto Namikaze?" Shigeru disregarded the woman with the pink hair. She just spoke to the Hokage. "I am here to collect the keys to the Namikaze clan compound as per the agreement with the Uzumaki daimyo." However, the third Hokage responded, "We thought young Naruto would accompany you." Naruto was eager to meet with his betrothed. "He will meet with you tomorrow before the introduction ceremony." The news did not appear to have pleased the council. "I suppose that is understandable. We were hoping to introduce him to his new sensei and inform him of his new teammates. We believe he will be pleased with our decision." Shigeru's expression became stern. She stated firmly that Naruto does not require a new team or sensei. Perhaps it is different in Whirlpool, but if Naruto is to go on missions for the Leaf, he will need a team and sensei. The Hokage stated to Shigeru, "I am Naruto's sensei, and he is part of a three-man team." Shigeru replied. Taking a scroll out of her kimono, a ninja received it from her and brought it to the Hokage. This scroll says that his teammates are Haku of the Yuki clan and Kimimaro of the Kagaya clan. They are not only his teammates but will also be acting as Naruto's bodyguards. "That is correct," Shigeru replied. "My team and I will actively go on missions for your village as agreed, but as a Whirlpool ninja, Naruto will be under my command while on those missions." Although they didn't appear pleased that their plan had been thwarted before it started, the council and the Hokage ultimately came to an agreement. Shigeru agreed to bring her team to meet with the council and the Hokage prior to the introduction ceremony the next day after receiving the keys to the Namikaze compound. The next morning, Naruto Uzumaki was the target of a silent attacker who crept through the Namikaze compound's hallways without the bodyguards. The attacker had entered the target's room and was now standing over Naruto, poised to attack. With a flicker of satisfaction in his dark eyes, he paused to relish his triumph before the attack struck its unwary target. "Ah!" A desperate cry erupted from Naruto's chamber. With their weapons out and prepared to protect their friend, Kimimaro and Haku dashed to Naruto's room. They were not prepared to witness a furious and completely soaked Naruto hurling shuriken at a small gray mouse with a pink ribbon tied to the end of his tail who was standing on his hind legs like a human. The mouse was clearly laughing at Naruto as it dodged his attacks with the dexterity of a ninja. When Kimimaro and Haku realized there is no danger, they both calmed down. Tochumaru. After halting his attack, Naruto turned to face Shigeru, who had come into the room. Tochumaru didn't take long to get to her. Climbing swiftly, he stood on her left shoulder. Still furious, Naruto yelled, "What the hell, sensei? Why did Tochumaru hit me with a water balloon?" Naruto complained but remained silent, saying, "I gave him the task of waking you up. Perhaps I should have told him to be less enthusiastic about it." Later on, he would receive the small hairball. Uzumaki don't simply become angry, they get even. "Get ready. We will have breakfast before meeting with the council." Naruto inquired, "Will Hinata Haim and her family be there?" "Yes, her family will be there so that she can be introduced as your betrothed." "Then I guess I can deal with the council for a short while." Hinata was at the academy getting the news about who would be hearing new teammates as Naruto and his group prepared for their meeting with the council. Now, Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and our new transfer student Sai. You will be under Kakashi Hitaki. Sasuke was enraged. He had done his homework. It was customary to pair the best male and female students with the class's deceased last. Thus, he ought to have been assigned to Hinata. Someone must have switched the teams this time, he thought, gritting his teeth. Team 8 will be Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aburame. You will be under Kurenai Yuhi. The news that Hinata and her friends would be joining a team together made them very happy. They had all been concerned about being divided. The Hokage had to alter his plans and decide not to include Hinata and Sasuke on the same team. So all of the concern had been in vain. Iruka congratulated all of the new genin before making one last announcement. And finally, since Team 9 is still active, Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, and Shoji Akamichi. You will be under Izuma Sarutobi. I want to let all of you know that there will be a very important ceremony from the top of the Hokage Tower later today. The Hokage has made it mandatory for the entire village because we will be celebrating the return of the son of the fourth Hokage, Naruto Namikaze. The room erupted in excitement at that announcement, knowing that Naruto detested being addressed by his father's name. Hinata scowled. Although he was proud of his heritage, he had made it clear to her that he was an Uzumaki first and foremost. Iruka-sensei. Why are we only hearing of him now? Where has Naruto Namikaze been? The son of the fourth Hokage should have been here in the village, right? Replied Ino. The other members of the genin murmured agreement. Iruka reluctantly responded to her query. When he was young, he was sent to live with his mother's family. Before she married the fourth Hokage, Kushina Namikaze was Kushina Uzumaki, princess of Whirlpool country. She died during childbirth, and the fourth Hokage died fighting the nine-tailed fox. That same day the Uzumaki took custody of young Naruto when he was 5, and he has lived in Whirlpool country since then. He has chosen to return to be a ninja of the village as his parents were before him. The Hokage will make the announcement during the ceremony. That is all the information I have now. I suggest you all go and get ready. Hinata couldn't help but overhear some of the things the other genin were saying as they were all leaving. One girl squealed, "Did you hear that? A real prince?" "Yeah, and if he looks anything like the fourth, you know he's probably gorgeous," Ino replied. Sakura, "Hey, what about Sasuke? Traitors." Snaps. Ino gave a shrug. The only person he has ever shown interest in is Hinata, and we're talking about the prince of a whole country. If you marry him you become a real princess, maybe a queen if he becomes daimyo. The prospect of a few well-placed palm strikes nearly made Hinata smile, and she would have loved to silence them. However, Hinata was aware that when they learned about her and Naruto, the joke would be on them. Hinata left them to their squabbles and fantasies with that in mind. Naruto had traveled to the Hokage Tower with his group. He had long hated the council, and now he was going to meet the Hokage. Had it been up to them, Naruto would never have encountered Hinata, his friends, or his family. Naruto had been prepared to handle politicians by his grandfather, so he was ready for them. Naruto exuded total confidence as they were escorted into the council room. He would not display any signs of weakness. He was an Uzumaki, and one should be careful not to mess with an Uzumaki, as the Leaf leaders need to understand. With Shigure at his heels and Haku and Kimimaro on either side, Naruto entered. There were many people in the room, some of whom Naruto recognized from their previous visits to Whirlpool. Every one of them stood before him. The big table that was usually in the middle of the room was gone now. Standing in the middle of the room were the Hokage and his advisors. The third greeted Naruto with a smile as he moved forward. "Naruto, welcome back. You have grown much, I see. It is great to see you again." Naruto became enraged. The Hokage came to mind. The only person he could recall being kind to him while he was in this village was the third Hokage. He was aware now, of course, that the Hokage had deliberately prevented him from seeing his family. He responded to the elderly man while wearing a neutral mask, saying, "Thank you for your kind words, Lord Hokage. You're more than welcome. We are happy to have you back, and I for one expect great things from you. Your parents were two of the finest ninja I have ever met, and I'm sure you will follow in their footsteps. My team and I will do our best to fulfill our duty to the alliance between my clan and your village." That response didn't sit well with the Leaf leaders. Naruto obviously didn't think of himself as having any sort of connection to the village. To get him to reconsider, they would need to put in more effort. "That's great to hear. By now the people of the village should be gathered outside. It's time to introduce you to them. They're looking forward to meeting the son of the Minato Namikaze. I will be introduced as an Uzumaki or not at all," Naruto replied. Everyone in the car stopped to stare at him because of that. One of the council members questioned, "What do you mean? You're the last of the Namikaze. Why wouldn't we introduce you as one?" replied another. "Because I know exactly what you are trying to do. I don't answer to the Namikaze name. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I will not be used for your political games. The only reason I'm even setting foot in this place is because I didn't want to wait 4 years to see Hinata." The third wanted to break up the argument before it started because he could see it was about to get out of hand. "Perhaps a compromise can be reached. We can." "No. You made the choice to give me the Uzumaki name, remember? Now you have to live with that choice, Lord Hokage." Naruto never appeared more like his parents to the Hokage. He saw the combination of his mother's fierce determination and his father's intelligence. He was aware that arguing with someone who had an unchangeable will was not something he should attempt. "Yes, I suppose I do, don't I? I would like to speak to you in private when we have more time," Naruto said. "I look forward to it," without emotion. Hinata, Hana, and Hanabi were waiting for them at the summit of the tower, so they all headed there. When Naruto saw Hinata, he became happier. He was prepared to tolerate living in the Leaf Village because of her. As he continued to deal with the council and the Hokage, he would remind himself of that fact. It was going to be harder to control his anger than he had thought. The whole village had assembled in front of the Hokage Tower, as the Hokage had asked, and was waiting for the ceremony to start. The Hokage and the village council quickly showed up, so they didn't have to wait long. The Hokage took a position to speak to the populace. "People of the Leaf, 12 years ago, our great village suffered an attack from a monster that was as dangerous and powerful as any army. A great many of our ninja fought and died to defend our people. We lost mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. We were on the verge of annihilation, but we were saved by one of our greatest ninja. One of our greatest leaders, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves. The village erupted in applause in the mention of the fourth ninja. The fourth gave his life so that our village could survive. As many of you know, his own wife had died giving birth to their only child that very day. For many years it was believed that their child had died that day, ending the line of the Namikaze. But that was not the case. It was a lie fabricated to protect him. 7 years ago he was sent to live with his mother's family and has been away from our village, until today. Today he has returned as a proud ninja representative of an allied nation and a future leader of their people. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. This is Naruto Uzumaki, crowned prince of Whirlpool country. As the Leaf Village applauded, Naruto took a step forward. He peered into the crowds. Finding the hypocrisy hard to bear, they all treated him like a demon and a useless piece of garbage. Just 7 years ago, however, he refused to let his feelings control him. Naruto would put all of his training to use and behave as Whirlpool's heir is supposed to. Thank you, Lord Hokage. I am glad to be here, and to represent my home and my clan, the Uzumaki. This will be a valuable experience for me, one that I hope will help me become a great leader for my people once I take the throne or Whirlpool. I look forward to getting to know the village that my parents loved so much, and more importantly, the village that someone very important to me loves as well. The person that is the reason I'm here, that is someone I would like to join me here. I would like to formally introduce to all of you my betrothed and future queen of Whirlpool, Hinata Hyuga, heiress of the Hyuga clan. The younger generation was unaware of the betrothal, but many members of the older generation were. Their responses to Naruto's declaration were intriguing. Sasuke was fuming with anger. In addition to humiliating him, that bastard had stolen the girl he had selected to be his future wife. That was not going to happen. The next time he saw that blonde fool, he would prove who the real elite was. When Ino noticed Hinata standing next to the incredibly attractive blonde, she was standing next to Sakura and her mouth was hanging open. It was unfair. No way. Not only is Sasuke after her, but now she is going to marry the prince and son of the fourth Hokage? Sakura responded, whatever, it's not like he is better than Sasuke-kun. Both girls turned to see Shikamaru and Choji behind them and said, will you both calm down? This whole thing is a real drag? You don't understand, slacker. I would kill to be in Hinata's shoes. She is so lucky, complained Ino. There were many girls in the village who felt the same way. You're right. I don't get it. It would be too troublesome to care that much about someone I have never met before. For all you know, this Naruto guy can be a real pain in the A. Oh please, he's a prince. I'm sure he is real gentleman, nothing like you lazy bums. Guess we'll find out, won't we? Since he'll be taking missions with us, Shikamaru replied. Iruka-sensei approached Ino and Sakura before they could respond. Sakura and Ino dragged Shikamaru and Choji to the training ground, where the rest of their teams were already waiting for them. Good. The 4 of you are here. I was asked to tell all of the top genin to join the council and the Hokage in training ground 1. He is going to have the young prince and his team demonstrate their skills by sparring with some of you. The Leaf genin agreed to participate. Well, everyone except Shikamaru, who felt it was too difficult. Thank you all for coming in such short notice. As you all now know, Naruto and his team will be joining all of you as genin in the service of the Leaf. However, because they have been trained in a foreign nation, we do not know enough about their skill to know what missions they are ready to take. Each member of Naruto's team will spar with one of you to give us an idea of their skill level. The first to spar for the Whirlpool team will be Kimimaro Kagaya. Who would like to be his opponent? The Hokage responded. With a phony smile that everyone found a little unsettling, Sai said, I would like to volunteer, Hokage-sama. Sai and Kimimaro made their way to the middle of the field and got ready to battle. Sai threw a number of shuriken at Kimimaro to begin the fight, but he just swatted them away with a left-handed swing and charged directly at Sai with remarkable speed. In an attempt to put some distance between himself and Kimimaro so he could use his ink ninjutsu, Sai had thrown the shuriken. Sai was forced to use his ninjutsu and charge at Kimimaro since he was not given enough time by Kimimaro using his forearm to block Sai's blade. Kimimaro struck Sai in the face with such force that he fell across the training field. A sharp object was pressed against Sai's neck as he stumbled to his feet. A sharp bone knife protruded from Kimimaro's palm and was pressed against his neck as Sai cautiously glanced to his right. Winner of the match is Kimimaro Kagaya. Kimimaro silently walked over to Naruto's side, where his friends congratulated him. After that, Haku headed toward the training ground center. Next up is Haku Yuki. Who would like? I'll do it, Hokage-sama. Ino was determined to seize this opportunity. She desired to win the prince over. Ino carefully examined her opponent as she made her way to the middle of the training area. Ino reluctantly acknowledged that the girl was stunning because of Haku's loose-fitting kimono. She was unable to see how good her figure was. Haku had a sword strapped to her left hip, which Ino saw in comparison to the prince's katana. She is holding a smaller sword. Ino reasoned that it probably meant she was either a long-range fighter, which would be ideal for me, or a very close-range fighter, so I would need to exercise caution. Ready? Begin. Similar to Sai, Ino began by launching multiple kunai knives at Haku before neutralizing them with senbon. The girl was good enough to do that, which surprised Ino. Ino was even more taken aback when Haku began using hand signals. Water style. Water bullet jutsu. When the attack was over, Ino was breathing heavily because she was so out of shape that she could hardly handle the huge burst of water that came from Haku's mouth as a number of Haku clones emerged from the water puddles surrounding her. Ino had little time to relax. Water clones? You can't be serious. Ino tried her hardest to repel the numerous foes that attacked her from all sides, but it ultimately didn't help. Senbon and kunai were pressed against Ino's neck as the clones swiftly overpowered her and pinned her to the ground. Haku Yuki is the winner of the match. Haku grinned broadly as she drove the clones away and headed to her squad. Sadly, Ino was completely soaked in water when the clones dispersed. Ino was incensed because she had never felt so ashamed in her life. Additionally, it was in front of her father and the Hokage in addition to Sasuke and the prince. For this, Ino promised to get the bitch back. Calmly, Naruto walked to the middle of the training area. He was smirking so hard he had to hide it. The council's expression when his teammates annihilated their top genin was invaluable. Naruto intended to carry on the tradition since the Leaf were from a samurai-dominated nation. He wanted to make sure they understood that they were true ninja and should not be taken lightly, and it appeared that he would also enjoy it because the Uchiha had already moved forward and was glaring at Naruto before the Hokage could even ask. Naruto grinned at that moment, knowing that he would love this. Ready? Begin. By the beginning of the match, Naruto didn't seem bothered. In fact, he appeared rather bored, which only made Sasuke even more irate. You think you're special, don't you? Just because you're the prince of some backwater rock in the middle of nowhere? Don't make me laugh. I'm going to show you what a true elite is capable of. With a bored tone, Naruto questioned, are you going to talk me to death or are you actually going to do something? When he had had enough, Sasuke charged Naruto. Sasuke attempted to hit Naruto with his family's taijutsu, but Naruto easily evaded the Uchiha's attacks. Given the Uchiha's growing frustration, Naruto made the decision to aggravate them even more. He kept dodging Sasuke's blows, saying, so this is the famed interceptor fist of the Uchiha clan? Pathetic. With a laugh? Do you want me to let you know in on a secret? The reason why it's so easy for me to avoid your attacks is because I'm very familiar with its patterns, and I should be since they were stolen from the Uzumaki taijutsu style. What the hell are you talking about? This is the style that my clan has always used. Not really. Your clan has only been using the interceptor style for about 90 years or so. It's just a bastard version of the Uzumaki style that your ancestors tried to steal from mine. Unfortunately for them, the Uzumaki style can't be duplicated by a non-Uzumaki. Not even your precious Sharingan can copy it. Your clan had to settle for cheap imitations, which is all you're using against me right now. As he redoubled his efforts and attacked mindlessly, Sasuke yelled, lies. You don't know anything about my family. This made it easy for Naruto to sidestep him and caused Sasuke to lose his footing. Sasuke ended up hitting the ground face first. As a result, Sasuke was not physically hurt, but his pride was mortally wounded. This bastard was insulting and disparaging his great clan in addition to making him look foolish. Naruto then assumed a position and said, let me show you the true power of the Uzumaki style. His right arm was cocked back with a closed fist, seemingly ready to punch, while his left arm was stuck forward as he bent his knees. In the background, oh, he'll employ that maneuver? Haku remarked, I think Naruto-sama is still upset about the Uchiha because of what happened yesterday. Kimimaro merely nodded in agreement. Naruto-kun needs to learn to restrain himself, Shigure stated. Alongside Naruto. Bring it, loser, I'm ready for it, said Sasuke, standing up and adopting a defensive posture. If that's the way you want it, fine by me, said Naruto with a sly smile. Style of Uzumaki. Gatotsu Naruto's fist strikes Sasuke's face with devastating power before he can blink, sending him flying across the training ground and landing unconscious a few feet from the council and the Hokage, who are in complete awe of the speed and power Naruto just displayed. Naruto calmly returns to his team as if it were no big deal. What on earth just took place? One of the civilians, unable to follow the events, inquired. He employed an Uzumaki technique, which is typically used in conjunction with a sword to achieve an immediate kill. Although I don't know much about it, I am aware that the Uzumaki use a strong thrust to get over short distances and get past an opponent's defenses with remarkable speed. The stance they adopt is crucial to the technique, but I am aware that the Uzumaki are the only ones who understand it in any case, the Hokage declared. It was a very impressive set of sparring matches. The third thanked everyone who had taken part and informed the genin that their teachers would get in touch with them to begin their training. As for Naruto, he told Shigure that she could meet with him later that day to talk about how to fulfill her team's responsibilities to the village. Naruto and his companions walked Hinata home. Naruto couldn't be too critical of his time in the Leaf Village thus far, but he knew that he would never let his guard down, that he would be prepared for anything that came his way, and that he would always have trustworthy people by his side with his worthy allies. Naruto was in the Leaf Village Cemetery, one of the few locations in the Leaf Village he had been eager to see, the day after the introduction ceremony. Hinata's presence beside Naruto was appreciated. Although this was challenging, Hinata's presence was beneficial. Naruto knew this was the first location he wanted to see. When Hinata offered to show him around the village with his group, he now stood in the middle of this hallowed space, gazing at two gravestones that bore the names of two of the most significant figures in his life. Namikaze Minato, Namikaze Kushina, Uzumaki. Naruto had always desired to visit the grave of his parents. Naruto continued to believe his mother ought to be with the other members of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto would make sure to return both of his parents' bodies to Whirlpool, where they belonged, if the leaf ever provoked him. Hello Mom, Dad, I have wanted to come visit you for a long time. There is so much I want to tell you. While the first years of my life were hard, I now live in Whirlpool with grandfather and uncle. I am very happy now, and I will do everything in my power to be a great leader to our people. I'm going to be spending some time in this village that you both loved so much. I may not feel the same way about the leaf that you do, but I'm here for an important reason, for someone important to me, someone I would like for you to meet. This is my betrothed, Hinata Hyuga. Before speaking, Hinata, who had been standing beside Naruto, made a tiny bow to the gravestones. It is an honor to meet you, Lord Hokage. Lady Kushina, I just want to let you know that I care for your son very much and I will do my best to help him and fulfill his dreams and make him happy. Naruto grasped Hinata's hand and grinned at her, not wanting to interrupt such a private moment for them. Haku and Kimimaro watched from a short distance while they spent some time together. In the Hokage Tower, Sasuke was struggling to keep his temper in check while Naruto and Hinata were spending time together. What do you mean you won't give me a rematch? That loser cheated somehow. It's the only way that... Silence. You are not here to discuss a rematch with anybody. You are here so we can tell you what disciplinary actions will be taken against you for the assault on Hinata Hyuga. Sasuke exclaimed, What? I didn't do anything. The Hokage replied, Well, a number of witnesses say otherwise. These are unacceptable actions for a Leaf Ninja. You will be on probation for the next 6 months and a fine of 20,000 ryo will be paid by the Uchiha account to the Hyuga clan. If something like this happens again, the consequences for you will be far more serious. Do you understand? Yes sir, Sasuke replied, gritting his teeth. This was just another humiliation from that Namikaze bastard, and he didn't care about the money. Hinata would be his wife whether she wanted to be or not. Sasuke would force him to pay, and he would demonstrate to Naruto that the Uchiha were the best clan. Hinata believed that Naruto should be given a glimpse of the village after he had paid his respects to his parents. Hinata was becoming concerned because Naruto had not said much. She was considering where to take Naruto to lift his spirits when he abruptly stopped. Naruto was sniffing the air when Hinata turned to face him. For a brief moment, Hinata thought Naruto's eyes shone like stars. Naruto seized Hinata's hand and pulled her down the shopping district, with Haku and Kimimaro right behind him. Let's go this way, he cried. Hinata was relieved that Naruto was no longer brooding, but she wasn't sure what had taken him over so quickly. Hinata noticed that Naruto had stopped running in front of a small food stand. Naruto's eyes were fixed on the name sign above the entrance, and he appeared breathlessly excited. Ramen Ichiraku. Hey, let's get something to eat. Is it okay if we eat here, Hinata? Sure. Let's get some lunch, Hinata said with a smile. Hinata immediately recognized two of the people inside the small stand as the four of them walked in as Choji Akimchi ate ramen at a breakneck pace. Shikamaru Nara sat comfortably against the counter. Hello, Shikamaru. Choji, how are you two doing today? Choji exclaimed. Huh? Oh, hey Hinata. Shikamaru simply waved hello because he was too lazy to talk. While his friends ordered one bowl of ramen each, Naruto swiftly ordered 4 bowls and sat down next to Hinata. Hinata questioned, Are you sure you should eat that much, Nato-kun? When it comes to ramen, no one can eat more than me, replied Naruto. When Choji heard that, his ears perked up. A statement like that could not go unanswered by any Akamichi. I hate to disagree with you, Naruto-sama. But, as an Akamchi, I have to tell you that we can eat more than anyone else. especially when the food is this good. Naruto's eyebrow went up. Is that so? That sounds like a challenge to me? This is going to be really troublesome, Shikamaru sighed. Knowing that Naruto was fiercely competitive, particularly when it came to his favorite food, Hinata grinned at Shikamaru while Naruto and Choji engaged in a heated ramen eating competition. Hinata, Haku, and Kimimaro peacefully savored their meal. Choji watched in horror as Naruto and he ate more than 30 bowls of ramen in an hour in addition to matching him bowl for bowl. Naruto now had a 3-bowl advantage. Even worse, Choji didn't think he could eat the delicious food that was in front of him for the first time in his memory. I surrender, Choji said before he could respond. Naruto finished his bowl. Well, that was by far the most difficult eating challenge I ever had. I don't think I could have eaten another bowl. One can see why your clan claims to be the best. If you ever want a rematch, I would love to give you another shot. Naruto replied. Choji felt a little better after learning that, despite his defeat today, a rematch was still possible. I think you just want an excuse to pig out on ramen again, Naruto-sama, Haku replied. Knowing he was caught, Naruto laughed and scratched the back of his head. He had still enjoyed the match, though meeting another ramen enthusiast was a pleasure. Shikamaru inquired, so what are you guys up to today? I'm showing them around the village since we all start missions tomorrow and it will be more difficult to spend time together, replied Hinata. That makes sense, Choji remarked. We're going to enjoy our last day off by going cloud watching at usual spot and play some shogi, Shikamaru said. Shogi? Haku inquired. Yes, do you play? All of us were taught to play shogi and other strategy games, she replied. Shikamaru said, really? Do you want to play a game? Shikamaru was always up for playing shogi with new people. There is a park with some tables nearby, we could go there, she said. Haku glanced over at Naruto to check on him. Naruto thought this was a great idea and nodded to Haku because he was too full of ramen to go out and about. They all paid for their meals and then headed to the park Shikamaru had mentioned. When Shikamaru arrived, he grabbed a portable shogi board, but Naruto waved him to stop. Please, allow me to provide the board, Naruto said then, taking a scroll out of his kimono. Naruto opened the most opulent shogi set Shikamaru had ever seen. A set like that was only within the reach of daimyos. Shikamaru was aware of the Uzumaki clan's enormous wealth, but it was a completely different experience to witness it firsthand. Shikamaru set that aside for the time being and focused on the game that was about to start. After an hour, Shikamaru's forehead was sweating as he gazed at the board. One of the most difficult shogi games he had ever played was just over. His father was the only one who had treated him more harshly. The lazy genius found it hard to believe that a young, attractive girl who was not much older than him would cause him such trouble. It looks like you win the game, Shikamaru-san. It was a good game, Haku said. Shikamaru questioned, you were amazing. How did you get to be so good? Ishida-sensei taught the three of us how to play, though I'm not as good as Naruto-sama. I learned much from our sensei. When Shikamaru learned that someone his age was so skilled at shogi, she was shocked, and she was even more shocked to learn that Naruto was even more skilled than she was. If what Haku said was accurate, Shikamaru would adore playing against Naruto. Naruto must have seen Shikamaru's expression because he gave him a smug smile. I would love to play you sometime, but I think that it's about time we continue our tour since we start missions tomorrow, Naruto replied. Shikamaru replied, yes, I am looking forward to the game. Following their pickup and farewells, the group dispersed, with Hinata guiding Naruto and his group to a different area of the village. Naruto soon found himself standing atop the Hokage monument, which overlooked Leaf Village. Even though Naruto still has misgivings about this village, he had to acknowledge that he felt quite content while standing atop his father's head and holding his beloved Hinata in his arm. This situation wouldn't be as bad if he didn't have to deal with the foolishness of the village leaders and, to a lesser extent, the villagers themselves. At least the villagers hadn't yet made a foolish attempt. The only thing Naruto had been anticipating about tomorrow was the interesting missions he hoped his team would receive. Almost everything was finished for Naruto back in Whirlpool, and he was excited to be able to use all of his training at last. Unfortunately, the following day would bring Naruto and his group an unpleasant surprise. Shigure escorted Kimimaro, Haku, and Naruto to the Hokage Tower for their first mission. Following a short wait, they were escorted into the Hokage's office, where missions were being distributed by the Hokage and a few chunin. Shigure said, Team Whirlpool reporting for duty, Lord Hokage, in a monotone. Welcome, I look forward to seeing how well you all perform your duties. Shigure answered, we are prepared to receive our first mission. The Hokage exclaimed, great, I believe I have the ideal one for you. After 2 hours, Naruto stared at the target that his team had been entrusted with capturing and exclaimed, you have got to be kidding me. Instead, the target was contentedly purring in Haku's embrace. That statement caused Naruto to hiss angrily from the furball in question. I don't know what's worse, that our first ninja mission was to catch a cat, or that it took us 2 hours to get the blasted furball. That wasn't a nice thing to say, Naruto-sama, Haku reprimanded. Naruto let out a sigh. Let's just get him to the tower so we can get a new mission. The Hokage Tower was the destination for Team Whirlpool upon their arrival. The Hokage and his group were taken aback, particularly since they were holding the cat Tora. Shigure declared, "My team has accomplished their goal, Hokage-sama. I'm very impressed. It usually takes the average genin team most of the day to locate and capture Tora. No matter. We have plenty of other missions for your team to choose from. Let's see. We have some grocery shopping for an elderly couple, trash cleanup at the river area, and..." Naruto felt compelled to speak up at this point. "Excuse me, Lord Hokage, but these missions of yours seem to be little more than chores. I don't see how they can be considered ninja missions." The Hokage chuckled lightly. It appeared that Naruto's team was no exception to Genin's constant complaints about their missions. "Naruto, there is a reason why we have these types of missions for newly graduated Genin. You see, a new team needs these missions so the team members can get familiar with each other and build teamwork, while safely within the village. Once their sensei believes they are ready, we start giving them more dangerous missions outside the safety of the village walls." Naruto gave a nod. "That makes sense. However, my team and I don't require working on teamwork. We have been training together, along with our sensei, for several years now. We know and trust each other absolutely. Using us for these types of missions is a waste of our talents. I'm confident that we can handle a higher mission." As he considered it, the Hokage rubbed his beard. He was aware that Naruto's team was superior to the average genin. Maybe he should assign them a more difficult task. It might be an excellent chance to win Naruto's favor. "I will look into giving you a higher mission. Today we only have D rank missions for genin teams, but perhaps tomorrow we can have a C rank for your team." Even though Naruto didn't seem pleased about having to complete more D rank missions, he might at least get something better tomorrow. In order to discuss their day and their missions, Naruto and Hinata met later that day in the Namikaze compound. "And then we had to go shopping for people's groceries. How are those things considered ninja missions?" Hinata laughed. Understanding Naruto's frustration, Kiba had also been quite outspoken in his criticism of D-rank missions. "Well, maybe you will get a better mission tomorrow. My team will be doing D ranks for weeks before we are ready for a C rank mission." But you said that you work great together with Kiba and Shino. Why would you have to wait so long?" replied Naruto. "Yes, but we still need to learn teamwork and training to be able to use our abilities as a unit, not just in battle but in other situations too. All that takes time. Also, Kurenai's sensei will be teaching us exercises that are not part of our clan training. I'm sure your team will be ready for higher missions faster than the other Leaf Genin. None of them looked very impressive, to be honest with you. Many don't take their training seriously, but if they passed their sensei's test, then they, at the very least, then they have the potential to be better. It's up to their sensei to bring out that potential. I guess, I don't envy that they have a lot of work to do." Hinata grinned, but before she could respond, Haku entered the space. A person in Hyuga robes entered shortly after, saying, "Naruto-sama, there is someone here for Lady Hinata." When Hinata saw her cousin Neji enter with a frown on his face, she stiffened. "Hinata-sama, I was sent to collect you. Your father wanted to make sure you arrived on time." The way Neji spoke to Hinata annoyed Naruto. He was aware of Neji's animosity toward the Hyuga clan's main branch. Naruto didn't have to agree with Neji's attitude, even though he couldn't hold him responsible for it. "I see. I didn't realize it was so late. I have to go now, Naruto-kun. I will try to see you tomorrow, okay?" Naruto bid Hinata farewell with a hug and watched her depart with her cousin, saying, "Sure, we'll talk some more tomorrow, Hime." That Hyuga seemed to have some hostility towards Lady Hinata, Haku said. That was her cousin, Neji Hyuga. He has a grudge against every Hyuga that is part of the main branch. It's a long story, but he blames them for his father's death. From what Hinata has told me, he has every right to be mad, but I still don't like his attitude towards Hinata Hime. It's too bad he feels that way, but it is a family matter. I know, and I'll stay out of it. It's just that I know how much it bothers Hinata. She wants her clan to be united. A family, but no matter how hard her father tries, the elders and main branch members always fight him to keep things the same. I guess all I can do is support Hinata as much as I can. Come, Naruto-sama, we should get ready for dinner. Okay, we do have a busy day tomorrow, especially if we get a good mission. It would be nice to have a chance to test our skills, Haku replied. We will, and we will show everyone the strength of Whirlpool Ninja. Yes, we will do our best to help you succeed, Naruto-sama. After giving Haku a smile, Naruto led the two of them to the dining room, where Kimimaro was waiting. Shigeru's absence caught Naruto's attention. "Where is Sensei?" Kimimaro gave a shrug. This was Shigeru's habit. Naruto surmised that it was related to his status as a spies expert. Shigeru was someone who could take care of herself, so Naruto wasn't overly concerned about it. In the business district, at a dango store, Enko Mitarashi enjoys life's small pleasures. She enjoys good dango, cheap alcohol, and a good fight. And so, after a long day of entertaining inmates in the information retrieval and interrogations department, she was walking into her favorite bar when Enko noticed someone seated at her favorite table. Her mood abruptly changed. On the days that Enko was known to be there, the regulars of the shop learned the hard way not to sit there because they knew it was her seat. She sat down at a different table. The shop owner put a bottle of sake and a small sake dish in front of her and asked, "Enko, the usual? You know it. But hey, who is that at my table? I haven't seen her before." "Don't know, she showed up a while ago. She ordered some dango but hasn't said much to anyone," stated the proprietor of the shop. As she drank her sake, Enko gazed at the woman seated at her table. She had a long sword resting against the table and was dressed in a small purple kimono. Enko felt uneasy about the woman for some reason. Even though Enko couldn't pinpoint it, she knew this woman wasn't to be taken lightly. At that moment, Enko saw one of the men seated at a table close to the woman rise and approach her. Enko could tell the man had been drinking too much even from where she was sitting because he wasn't even walking normally. As Enko watched the man approach the woman, she thought, this should be entertaining to watch. Alongside Shigeru was enjoying her dango when she noticed a man approaching her who appeared to be a Chunin-ranked ninja based on his uniform. The man said, "Hey there, gorgeous, I haven't seen you around here before." In a slightly slurred voice. Shigeru did not even acknowledge him. Ignoring him, the drunken man was offended. The man exclaimed, "Hey, I'm talking to you," loudly to get Shigeru's attention. He erred by placing his hand on her. Shigeru moved in a blur before his hand could reach her, and the man discovered that his hand was skewered by a dango stick. The man let out a painful, "Ah!" scream. He yelled, "What the hell, you crazy bitch?" At her. Shigeru ignored him once more and carried on eating her dango. Two of the man's friends had arrived by that point and were standing beside him. Another yelled, "Who do you think you are?" It appeared that a fight was inevitable because all three men had pulled kunai. However, Shigeru blurred again before either man could move. Nothing happened at first, but as the men regained their composure, cuts started to show up all over their clothes. The men's clothes were all ripped to pieces and fell off a second later. Ha 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 ha. Enko was the most outspoken of the bar patrons, who chuckled at the now nude men as quickly as they could. The men fled the bar, and Shigeru went back to eating, only to have a purple-haired woman in a tan trench coat join them. "Hey there." The woman waved as she sat across from Shigeru and set a rather large plate of dango and a bottle of sake in front of her. "That was some nice work you did back there, I'm impressed." Shigeru gave the woman a quick look but remained silent. "Not much of a talker, huh? That's okay, I'm Enko Mitarashi. What's your name?" "Shigeru Kasaka." With a devilish smile, Enko said, "Shigeru, huh? Well, Shigeru-chan. I like your style and I think we are going to be good friends. You and I just know it." Naruto and his group were back in the Namikaze compound when they felt a chill go through them. They began to worry that something terrible had just occurred, but they were unsure of how accurate their suspicions were. Tower of Hokage. In front of the Hokage, Naruto and his group waited to learn the details of their upcoming mission. Naruto desired it to be a mission that would allow him to demonstrate the power and expertise that his team had so diligently accumulated. There were mission scrolls being read by the Hokage. He had found the one for them based on the expression on his face. After completing the last scroll, the Hokage gave Naruto a smile. "I believe I have a mission acceptable to both the client and your team. It's a C-rank escort mission to the Land of Rivers." Naruto inquired, "What are the mission details?" "A merchant is paying us to provide protection for his caravan while it travels from the Leaf Village to its hometown, a village near the border between Fire Country and the Land of Rivers." Naruto gave a sympathetic nod. "What's the mission duration and should we expect any complications?" "It should take a week to travel to your destination, and no more than 2 days to return to the village. Once your mission is complete, you can expect heavy bandit activity near the border, and once you enter River Country, you should also be aware that the Rain Village's border is near the area, so you would do well to keep your guard up for possible ninja attack. It is unlikely that Hanzo would want to start any conflict with our village, but be ready for anything." "Yes, Lord Hokage," Naruto's voice said. "Very well, you have 2 hours to get ready for your mission. You will meet the client at the Western Gate." Naruto and his group departed to prepare for this mission after saying, "Yes, sir." Naruto and Hinata arrived at the Hyuga compound an hour later. He informed her of the mission and the anticipated time of his return. "Please be careful, Naruto-kun." "Don't worry, Haim, It's just an escort mission, I'll be back before you know it. Though she didn't express it, Hinata felt uneasy about Naruto's mission. She would need to have faith that Naruto would return safely. Hinata was aware of his team's high level of skill, so they would have no trouble performing a standard escort mission. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that this would not be your average escort mission. Naruto greeted his team at the western gate. After bidding farewell to Hinata, they left the village after meeting their client and made their way to the river country border. In an unidentified place, two people have a covert meeting. The first person questioned, "So it's true then? The team from Whirlpool was sent on a C-rank mission yesterday?" When asked, "Yes, my sources have confirmed it," the second person replied. "No doubt the Hokage is playing favorites with them. We will use this to our advantage and rid ourselves of a problem. After all, there is no telling what could happen out on a mission. I have taken the liberty of making arrangements for their team to meet with some unexpected complications on this mission." That made the first person sneer. "Excellent. And you made sure that things can't be traced back to us?" "Yes," the second said. "I spent a small fortune to make sure that the job will get done and be kept confidential. Then we must make preparations for when the news is made public. We must be ready to take advantage of our enemy's weakness. With the death of the Namikaze heir, I will take care of everything. Be ready when I give the word." Meanwhile, the first person nodded. "I will be and will contact you as soon as the deed is done." The second person said, confident that the Whirlpool team would not return from their mission. They both set out. Naruto and his group arrived at the edge of the Land of Rivers 4 days after departing the Leaf Village. Even though their journey through Fire Country was uneventful, they were aware that this was unlikely to continue once they crossed the border. When Haku returned from her scouting mission, the team had only been in River Country for a few short hours. She met with the other members of the team to share her findings. "Did you see anything unusual on the road ahead?" Haku-chan replied Naruto. "Yes, I did, Naruto-sama. Approximately 5 miles away there are a large number of bandits hiding near the main road. They're likely waiting to ambush their next target," Naruto remarked. "Which will likely be us?" Shiger inquired. "How many bandits are there?" "I counted 27 bandits after watching them for some time. I don't believe them to be a high threat. As far as skill, we only have to worry about their numbers." "What do you think is the best way to deal with them?" Naruto replied Shiger. Naruto was aware that she was putting his strategic thinking and team-leading skills to the test. "We have several options. First, we can look for an alternate route to avoid the bandits altogether while preferable. This choice will cost us time and could lead to other unexpected complications. Second, we can continue to lead the caravan and defend it. This would put our clients and his property in danger, but with our combined strength we can subdue the bandits." Shiger questioned, "Is that what you recommend we do?" Naruto gave a headshake. "What I recommend is that we split our team. Someone staying here to guard the caravan and others ambushing the bandits at their camp. With the element of surprise, we should be able to remove the threat to our client without placing him in danger." However, Shiger said, "that would raise the level of danger for our team." Naruto responded, "Our client is not prepared for this, but we are." Shiger gave a nod. "Very well. Do you wish to remain with the client or handle the bandits?" She was testing him again, asking him if he would take the risky and challenging route or the simple and safe one. "I will take Haku and Kimimaro with me and take out the bandits while you keep guard over our client." Shiger gave a nod. "If you're not back in an hour, I will come for you." After giving a nod of approval, Naruto and his group departed right away. Time was running out. It didn't take Naruto and his group long to arrive at the bandit camp in silence. The strategy was straightforward. Hit the bandits hard and fast to eliminate as many of them as possible before they could launch a counterattack. The plan was a huge success. The three of them rained down shuriken, kunai, and senbon down on the gullible bandits. After the team dispersed and used Naruto's signal and special communication seals, only 10 bandits remained after Team Whirlpool's initial attack, which killed or wounded the majority of them in less than a minute. The survivors formed a defensive line and worked well together to block the incoming projectiles, making it difficult for the team to hit them. Naruto was aware that the element of surprise had been eliminated and that they would now have to complete the task the difficult way. "Kimimaro, I need you to scatter them. We'll pick them off one by one." "Yes, Naruto-sama." Without saying a word, Kimimaro leapt from the tree he was in and charged the bandits, a bone blade sticking out of each glove. The speed and strength Kimimaro displayed astounded the bandits before the other bandits could respond to his attack. He dispatched 2 of them. Kimimaro used his special bloodline skills to protect himself from their attacks and used his digital shrapnel jutsu to kill 3 more. The remaining bandits did what Naruto knew they would do after witnessing a child cut down half of their numbers. They ran away. As they attempted to flee, Haku and Naruto were able to quickly eliminate them using kunai and senbon. Naruto and Haku landed beside Kimimaro after the last bandit was killed. Great job you two. I know none of us likes to needlessly take lives, but this was necessary. We couldn't let them continue to hurt people for their greed, replied Naruto. Kimimaro and Haku both nodded just as Naruto's group was ready to leap onto the tree. All of a sudden, Senbon shower. Hundreds of Senbon rained down from the sky, and Naruto's team leapt back when the rain stopped. The group cautiously observed 3 umbrella-wielding ninjas land in front of them. They were recognized as ninjas from the village, hidden in the rain by the headbands they wore. The Whirlpool ninja were being smirked at by the leader, a man with green hair and a purple outfit with stripes. Naruto's group was alert from the start. Kimimaro and Haku positioned themselves on either side of Naruto before he spoke. Naruto touched the hilt of his sword. Who are you and why are you attacking us? My name is Aoi Rokusho, Jonin of the Hidden Rain Village, and to put it simply for you to understand, someone wants you dead real bad. My team will make a fortune once we kill you. As Haku waved numerous Senbon and Kimimaro grew a bone blade from each palm, Naruto pulled out his sword and said, "You can try, but I assure you it won't be easy." The Rain Ninja didn't appear to be at all concerned, and Naruto's team was prepared for battle. Fool, you don't know how out of your league you or I'm a Jonin. And by partners are both seasoned Chunin. What chance do you think 3 genin have against us? As Naruto put it, rank means nothing. I'll take the leader. You two handle the other 2. Remember your training. We're fighting for our lives. Don't hesitate to put them down. Yes, Naruto-sama, was the response given by Kimimaro and Haku. Aoi merely chuckled. He gave his partners instructions to handle the spares while he completed their target. That's a nice looking sword, kid. I have a nice sword too. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as he saw Aoi draw a small sword. Io grinned, assuming that Naruto's astonishment was fear. I see you recognize my legendary sword. Aoi then turned the sword on, causing a loud crackling sound of electricity. This is the famous Raijin, the sword that once belonged to the second Hokage. With a bored tone, Naruto questioned, "Are you going to attack me? Or are you planning to talk me to death?" Even though he gave the impression of being unconcerned, his mind was constantly mulling over various ways he could ensure the safety of his team. The fight began when Aoi snarled at the punk's demeanor and threw himself at Nato. Alongside Haku, Haku was taken aback by her opponent's apparent slowness. Senbon emerged from his umbrella as he attempted to grab her. Haku moved far too quickly for his blows to be effective. Haku quickly put her opponent on the defensive by using her superior speed to close in and deliver a series of well-placed punches and kicks. Her opponent switched to ninjutsu when it became evident that Haku was the better taijutsu practitioner. Water style. Water bullet. Haku easily evaded the attacks by using her flexibility and agility. The water her opponent had called forth was then turned against him by Haku. Water style. Water clone jutsu. Suddenly, 3 clones surrounded her opponent, and they attacked him at once without any delay. The Rain Ninja found it challenging to defend against 3 opponents, despite the fact that the clones lacked the user's strength. The Rain Ninja was covered in cuts and bursts and was panting heavily when he managed to cut them down. He was frantically searching for Haku. He became aware of the unusually cold air. At that moment he found himself in the center of a dome formed by ice mirrors that appeared all around him. Out of nowhere, the Rain Ninja saw the opponent's reflection in every mirror. "Forgive me, but I have no time to waste. Naruto-sama may have need of me, so I will have to finish this quickly." Handfuls of Senbon were drawn by the reflections. As the Rain Ninja observed, Haku launched a storm of Senbon that the Rain Ninja had no chance of escaping. Before he could even widen his eyes, her opponent was on the ground, his body impaled by Senbon to the point where he looked like a porcupine, when Haku cancelled her jutsu. Haku went to meet with her teammates after her battle. Alongside Kimimaro. As a long-range specialist, Kimimaro's opponent was making a valiant effort to keep the Bone Sword Kid at bay because of his bloodline limit. Kimimaro was able to repel the Rain Ninja's attacks with ease. After the Rain Ninja's attempts to defeat Kimimaro with projectiles failed, he tried long-range ninjutsu, but that as well failed. His jutsu only succeeded in keeping Kimimaro at a distance that prevented him from launching a blade attack. Kimimaro made the decision to strike him from afar, pulling the blades out of his hands. Kimimaro aimed his fingers at the Rain Ninja. Digital Shrapnel Jutsu. Having seen the jutsu earlier, the Rain Ninja knew what was going to happen, but they were unable to completely avoid the attack. His right leg and left shoulder were struck by 2 of the bone projectiles. That's what led to his troubles. Kimimaro kept firing waves of projectiles until his opponent was down and completely still. After realizing that he couldn't fully avoid his attack, Kimimaro rarely thought twice about using lethal force. In contrast to Haku and occasionally Naruto, however, he argued that you have to give it your all when you are fighting against someone as strong as the teachers his team had in Whirlpool. Haku touched down close to Kimimaro. Kimimaro nodded, and the 2 of them jumped off to go find Naruto. "Let's go." Kimimaro-kun, we have to go and help Naruto-sama. Alongside Naruto, Naruto was able to obtain a good reading on his opponent in a short period of time. Naruto's first and most obvious observation was that Io lacked a sword. Io relied on the strength of his sword to make up for his lack of skill, essentially just hacking and slashing at Naruto. Naruto could see how someone else might benefit from this tactic. Normally, the Raijin would be able to send powerful electrical shocks while simultaneously cutting through anything. Io would have an advantage over most opponents because of that. Sadly for Io, Naruto was a member of the Uzumaki family. He was well versed in the most lethal form of Kenjutsu and knew just how to protect himself from these pathetic assaults. Additionally, Naruto wielded one of the fabled elemental swords, the Arashi, which was powerful enough to withstand the lightning's cutting power and negated the Raijin's ability to shock its opponent. For his part, Io was becoming more and more irate every minute. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to win over the blonde punk. In fact, the child's sword was blocking the Raijin. That was an extremely unsettling event. Typically, Io was able to overwhelm his opponents with the Raijin. Io was sick of being made a fool by a genin, and this brat kept dodging and blocking his attacks. As Naruto continued to swing the Raijin wildly at him, Io yelled at him, How are you blocking the Raijin's power? There is no way that that sword can be a match for its power, so how are you doing it? Naruto said, Well, the answer is actually a simple one, while he kept dodging and blocking. There are several legendary elemental swords known to exist. The Raijin of Lightning, which you stole from the Senju. The Ryujin of Water, said to have been lost at sea in a battle between the Mist and Cloud Village long ago. The Enreiha of Fire, wielded by the famous Kanagi clan of Lightning Country. The Ruaumoko of Earth, held by the Beifong clan of Earth Country. The Kazejin of Wind, that was said to have been owned by the son of the first Kazekage. And then we have my sword. When Naruto and Aoi stopped fighting, he held his in his right hand, allowing Io a clear view of the sword he was brandishing. Then Naruto took his guard, and Io got ready to fight on. The Arashi of Storms, once owned by the founder of the Uzumaki clan, now wielded by me. I am Naruto Uzumaki, heir of the land of Whirlpools, he said. Aoi then charged at Naruto once more, saying, It doesn't matter. All that means is I'll have 2 legendary swords once I kill you. However, this time, when his sword stroke came down, Naruto didn't block or dodge. Instead, he vanished in a blur. What? Where did? Io heard someone say, Right here, and looked up. Hidden Mitsurugi style. Ryusuzan. All Io could do was watch as Naruto, who had apparently executed a strong jump, increased the force and speed of his two-handed attack by using the momentum of his fall. It was over in an instant. There was a soft thud as Io's head hit the floor, followed shortly after by his body, and Naruto was beside him, flicking his sword to wipe away the blood. Naruto was sealing the Raijin into a storage scroll when Haku and Kimimaro arrived. Are you okay, Naruto-sama? Haku inquired anxiously. I'm fine. I'm not sure how this guy made Jonin, but he was surprisingly weak. He had no training in Kenjutsu that I could see, yet relied completely on his sword. How did it go with you? Are you both okay? Yes, both our opponent were somewhat skilled but unprepared to deal against our bloodline abilities. Both Kimimaro and I are unhurt. Good. Then seal the heads and burn the bodies. Someone planned this attack, and may have planned something else in case it failed. Let's hurry and get back to Shigure-sensei. Once we get back to the village, I plan on getting to the bottom of this. Let's go. Naruto's group then departed to finish their assignment, and mission payback will have to wait until the attacker's identity is known. However, after Naruto discovered who it was, they would discover why you never irritated an Uzumaki. Tower of Hokage. When Shigure said, and that is the end of our report, Hokage-sama. Thank you, Shigure-san. While I'm glad the mission was completed and the client was happy, I find the news of an attack targeted at Naruto very disturbing. Naruto remarked, as do we, Lord Hokage. And there was nothing else he said. Anything that can point to who hired them to attack you. I'm afraid not. While arrogant, Aoi wasn't stupid enough to give me his client's name. That is unfortunate. Regardless, you and your team have done a great service to the Leaf Village. Aoi was a traitor and a thief whom has finally paid for his crimes. Your team will receive the bounty for his head and the reward for returning the Raijin. Speaking of that, I have not made up my mind whether I should return the sword or not, Naruto replied. The Hokage was perplexed by this. What do you mean? The Raijin is a priceless artifact of the Leaf Village. I'm afraid I can't let you keep it. And what did you let happen to this priceless artifact? This is beside the point anyway. The Raijin doesn't belong to you or the Leaf Village. It belongs to the Senju clan, a clan that I am related to by blood and marriage. In an attempt to combat the headache that was pressing into his skull, the Hokage rubbed his temple. Naruto, That sword is treasured by our people. It belonged to one of our founders, and should remain in our village. I'm not sure how people would react if you kept it. If the people saw you using it, they might tee. I have no intention of using it. My sword style is not made for two swords, and frankly the Raijin is impractical for someone who specializes in kenjutsu. It doesn't have a proper blade for some of the techniques I've been taught. But then, why do you want to keep it? Because I don't really trust you to keep it safe. If what I read is true, then it only took a genin and a chunin working together to steal it in the first place, and both of the thieves were below average in skill if I remember correctly. The Hokage scowled. I assure you that there was more to it than that, and the security measures would be much different this time. Naruto pondered it for a moment. Very well, I will return it to the village under two conditions. And what conditions would those be? The Hokage inquired cautiously. First is that I'm allowed to add some security seals to whatever security you place on the sword, and second is that instead of whatever monetary reward for returning it, I get a document signed by you and the council that states I can claim anything I want instead. The Hokage rubbed his facial hair. The first would be no problem, the second would have to be within reason. It could not be something that endangers the village or that breaks any laws. You can't ask for an immediate promotion, for example. The Hokage became uneasy as Naruto grinned and said, "Of course, I would never ask for anything like that." "Then I'm sure we can work out something that satisfies your conditions." "Great, then we will take our leave. I'm eager to go and see Hinata Haim." At that, the Hokage grinned. "Then you best be off. You will not be required to take another mission for a couple of days, so enjoy your time off." With a nod, Naruto and his group departed the office. He turned to his sensei after leaving the tower. "We will need to keep our ears open to find out who planned the attack. While my clan has enemies all over the world, something tells me that the one responsible this time is in this village." "I'll investigate," Shiger said. Alongside Hinata. After training with her team, Hinata was heading home when she heard her name called by a familiar voice. Hinata Haim. With a bright smile on her face, she turned around and saw Naruto guiding Kimimaro and Haku in her direction. Running to Naruto, Hinata flung herself at him. Naruto embraced her and twirled her around while giggling. "You're back," beamingly said Hinata. "I was so worried for you." Before he could respond, Naruto put her down. "We just got back a little while ago. We gave our report to the Hokage and then came looking for you. It's only been a few days, but I missed you, Haim." Hinata gave him a kind smile. "How was your mission?" "It's a long story. Why don't we get you home and we'll tell you all about it." At the Hyuga clan 2 hours later. "Wow, I can't believe you had to fight other ninja on your first C-rank mission." "Yeah, luckily first they underestimated us and that gave us the opportunity to take them out so quickly." "Do you have any idea who could have ordered the attack on you?" replied Hinata. "Not yet, sensei. We'll look into it, don't worry. Once we find out who's responsible, payback time." Hinata was aware that Naruto would not show mercy to anyone who attempted to have him killed. She didn't expect him to be any less. All she could hope was that he would not be harmed. "So how was it for you and your team? Have you got any good missions?" replied Naruto. "No. We have only done D-rank missions. We have only been genin for about a month, so the mission types aren't going to change anytime soon." "Well, even though I find them boring, I guess doing a few low-rank missions won't be too bad. I did miss you while we were gone the last 2 weeks." Hinata blushes a little. "I missed you too, Naruto-kun. Maybe we can spend some time together tomorrow after we are done with training and our missions for the day." "I would love that." Hinata smiled broadly. After giving Hinata a cheek kiss that caused her to flush once more, Naruto and his teammates departed the Hyuga compound with the words, "Great. Well, we better head back before Sensei comes looking for us." The day after, Team Whirlpool was prepared to begin the morning missions. Following breakfast and a little morning training, they knew something was unusual as soon as they walked into the Hokage's office because of the third Hokage's worried expression. Shiger called out to the Hokage, "Team Whirlpool is ready to receive our mission for the day." "Hey, forgive me, I was reading some troubling news and I did not notice you come in." "Is something wrong?" Naruto inquired. "I am not entirely sure, and that is the problem. The day before yesterday I granted another genin team a C-rank mission. It should have been a standard escort mission like the one your team received. Unfortunately, much like your mission, it appears things have become more complicated. This morning we received a message from the Jonin in charge telling us they had been attacked by a pair of Chunin. It appears that our client wasn't entirely honest when he hired us. Isn't it protocol to terminate the mission if it's found out the client lied about the mission requested?" replied Naruto. "Ordinarily yes, however there are some unique circumstances the team chose to continue the mission because of they felt it was the right thing to do. I trust the Jonin in charge to be able to handle the situation. However, 2 hours ago a team of ANBU arrived with the captured ninja and I had them taken to the T&I department to have them questioned. I just received word from the department head and the news I received is unsettling. How so? Naruto inquired. The ninja were hired by a very wealthy man named Gato. We already knew this because of the report we received when the village was notified of the situation, but what we didn't know was that Gato has more missing ninja on his payroll, including an A-rank missing ninja from the village hidden in the mist that is named Zabuza Momochi. The demon of the hidden mist. Yes, I'm surprised you have heard of him, Naruto. My clan has had some issues with Water Country. Luckily for everyone they have been too busy with their civil war to cause any problems. Actually, the newest reports show that the fighting has recently stopped. The faction supporting the Bloodline users has taken control of the Mist Village. Then, after a surprising victory over the Water Daimyo's forces, they have forced a ceasefire. The Daimyo has more men, but the ninja have the capital cut off from the rest of the country. I believe they will reach an agreement soon. If that is the case, then I hope the Water Lord is smart enough to let things be. If he tries anything against Whirlpool, my grandfather will not be merciful. Yes. Well, we are getting off track now. While I believe the team I sent to Wave Country could handle a normal C-rank mission, this is no longer that kind of mission. Unfortunately, most of my Jonin and Chunin teams are out in the field on other assignments. The ones that are not are needed here for the protection of the village. And the Genin teams you have are not ready for this kind of mission. When asked, I can only think of one, the Hokage replied. Use. It would be considered a B rank. Possibly an A-rank mission. You would have to provide backup for the first team if possible. You would need to neutralize Gato himself, permanently neutralize him. Can your team do this? Naruto didn't need to consider it. Yes. After that, you have an hour to get ready for your mission. The specifics will be ready for you before you depart. Yes, Lord Hokage. The group went to depart, but Naruto had one last query. In any case, which team are we supporting? Naruto nodded and departed with his team, knowing who was on. Team 7 led by Kakashi Hatake. Well, that's fantastic. He might have been too quick to offer his team's assistance, but at least he can point out to the haughty Uchiha that his team needed assistance to finish their mission. His night out with Hinata would now have to wait, and he would need to let her know that he would be out of town for a few days by sending her a message. The following day in the Wave Land. Earlier in the day, Team Whirlpool had landed in the Land of Waves, and on their way to the designated meeting spot with Team 7, they encountered what had once been a battlefield. What are your thoughts? Shiger inquired. This battle was very fierce. It appeared that a number of advanced jutsu techniques were used. Naruto, you're correct. We should get together with the Leaf Ninja as soon as possible. Yes, Sensei. The team arrived at a nearby town quickly, and what they saw sickened them. There was poverty and illness everywhere, and the people appeared scared and miserable. Naruto and Haku found it particularly difficult to see, as it brought back memories of the brief period of their lives when they resembled the people here. We must assist these individuals. We need to stop Gato. Naruto's knuckles were white from holding his sword hilt so tensely. His team nodded, but they had to get to Team 7 first. They moved swiftly through the town and found the house they were looking for in no time. A lovely woman with long blue hair answered the door when they knocked. Can I assist you? She inquired. This is my team, and my name is Shiger. To assist the team that escorted the man named Tazuna here, the Leaf Village sent us here. That surprised but pleased the woman. Oh, then please come in, she said. My father is Tazuna, and my name is Tsunami. They were in poor condition when they arrived earlier today. The sensei is still unconscious upstairs after suffering the most injuries. Thank you. The team heard a well-known voice yell at them as soon as they entered. Why are you in this place? Sasuke was the worst, but Sano-sensei was close. Naruto rolled his eyes because the Uchiha had a way of irritating him more than anyone else he had ever met. Naruto said in a flat voice, the Hokage sent us here to deal with Gato and help you deal with Zabuza. Sasuke got up from the couch he had been sitting on with his teammates and strode over to confront Naruto. He didn't stop until his face was within inches of Naruto's. You don't need to assist us. You can go because you came here for nothing, and we can take care of this mission on our own. Unimpressed, Naruto said, yeah, no, that is not what we will do. Where is your sensei, then? The Hokage has given us a message for him. Sasuke's face flushed with rage at being so contemptuously ignored, but Sai interrupted him before he could respond. Upstairs is Kakashi-sensei. He suffered severe injuries during the conflict with Zabuza. What took place? On the way here, we passed the battle site. Tell them nothing at all. We can complete the mission ourselves, screamed Sasuke. In a fit of rage, Sasuke said, "I have already told you that I don't take orders from you, dickless." Sai silenced him. Just outside the village, we were attacked. Zabuza Momochi was the one while we protected the client. Kakashi-sensei fought him one-on-one due to his negligence. Kakashi was taken into custody in a water prison jutsu following a brief altercation after fending off Zabuza's clones for a while. Dickless and I were able to release Kakashi from the jutsu. Zabuza was then re-engaged by Kakashi. I assume it didn't go well for him that time either because he was seriously hurt, asked Naruto. Kakashi actually put up a good fight. He injured Zabuza almost fatally with his Sharingan. Yet another ninja struck before Kakashi could land a lethal blow. Who was that mist ninja again? Despite not wearing a headband, he most likely came from the Mist Village. He was about our age, a young man. He possessed white hair, shark-like teeth, and a big sword that resembled Zabuza's. Suigetsu, as Zabuza called him, is probably his apprentice. And Kakashi couldn't bring him along. Kakashi suffered a severe injury to his abdomen after Suigetsu attacked him when he let his guard down. Even so, Kakashi managed to hold him off long enough for Suigetsu to recognize that his best course of action was to flee. After grabbing Zabuza and walking away, Kakashi instantly passed out from his wounds and chakra fatigue. Although we are not medical professionals, we have given him the best care we can. Haku is fully qualified medic. She will look at Kakashi. After giving Naruto a nod, Haku went upstairs to attend to Kakashi. Have you all been hurt? Shiger inquired. No, only Kakashi-sensei was hurt, not us, replied Sai, and Shiger nodded. Are you aware of the location of Gato's base? This question was aimed at Tazuna, who was seated at a table sipping alcohol from a bottle, and it said, the sooner we deal with him the better. He conducts all of his illegal business out of a number of warehouses located throughout the town. Additionally, he owns a compound outside of town that belonged to a nobleman before Gato killed him and his family. What is the number of warehouses he owns? Naruto inquired. 4. He keeps weapons, drugs, and other illegal items in them, including human beings. People, are you saying slave humans? For months, Gato's men have been removing women and children from the town. After a few days or weeks of keeping them around, they are eventually sent out on Gato's ships and are never heard from again. I'm prepared to put my life in danger to construct this bridge because of this. I don't want my daughter or grandson to experience that. With his jaw clenched and face hardened, Naruto was trembling with rage. He gave Shiger a look, and she understood exactly what he wanted. At sunset, we'll strike the warehouses. I'll research them and come back with a strategy. You remain here with Kakashi and his group until I get back. She used a body flicker technique to vanish without waiting for a response. Gato and his men will be stopped by us. I have to go check on Kakashi now. Naruto and Kimimaro then went upstairs to find Haku. In one of the rooms, they discovered Haku and Kakashi, with Haku applying some form of medical ninjutsu on Kakashi, who was unconscious in a bedroll. How is he doing? Naruto inquired. He had a deep cut on his abdomen. By halting the bleeding, his students saved his life. He will live because I have fixed a lot of the damage, but for the foreseeable future, he will require bed rest to hasten his recovery. I have put him in a medically induced coma after being unconscious for a few days. He will wake up feeling extremely weak for a few days, but he should fully recover in 2 weeks. I'm glad to hear that. We are here to inform you that we must prepare for tonight. We are taking action against Gato tonight after learning about some of his recent actions. We know where he is. She inquired. We do, but in order to lessen his influence over the village, we will target his interests first, then we'll go straight after him. For now, we should get ready for Shiger-sensei's return with the information about the warehouses we'll be attacking this evening. It would only take a few hours for Shiger to return, and the Whirlpool team would be prepared to strike Gato on the first blow. Later that evening, after leaving the other genin at Tazuna's house as guards, Naruto and his team headed toward the center of the village under the cover of darkness. Shiger quickly gathered the information they needed about Gato's warehouses, and the team decided to hit all 4 warehouses at once, taking one out of each. Shiger would be taking this one out because she didn't want to risk her students being overpowered by the best men Gato had, and it was the biggest and best guarded, where he kept his drugs before distributing them throughout the elemental nations. Kimimaro would be removing the second warehouse, which served as Gato's armory and housed all of his weapons for use by his men or for sale in illicit arms deals. Gato kept everything he needed in the third warehouse, including food, clothes, and other consumables like medical supplies. The village's limited supply of food, though expensive, came from this warehouse, which Haku would be the one to remove. Slavery was illegal in most of the elemental nations, but it was legal in some parts of the southern continent. where Gato made a fortune shipping hundreds of people he snatched from places like Wave Country. Naruto made sure that he would be the one to take this place out. The fourth warehouse was used for storage, the storage of slaves, where he kept the women and children that were taken from the village and the surrounding areas. Alright, so everyone is aware of what to do. Then let's go. We start our attack in 30 minutes, Naruto said, and his team nodded. Team Whirlpool vanished in a blur as they split off in various directions. When the men on duty at the first warehouse door noticed a stunning woman in a skimpy kimono approaching them, they couldn't help but smile, thinking that their boss must have sent them a gift. They were so engrossed in their daydreams that they failed to notice the woman had quickly approached them, and before they could say anything, the woman passed them with a flash of steel. Subsequently, the bodies of the two men fell to the ground, their severed heads rolling away with foolish smiles still on their faces. Shiger entered the warehouse without anyone noticing, and after a few minutes, a single figure emerged, covered in blood and wielding a long sword. Upon closer inspection, it was evident that the figure was a woman, who took something from her kimono and threw it over her shoulder and into the warehouse as she proceeded to walk. A few seconds later, there was a massive explosion, and the warehouse was completely destroyed by flames. Shiger had completed her portion, and she was sure that her students could complete theirs as well. Besides, Naruto was still wary of her, so it wouldn't be wise to let them see her like this. Kimimaro killed the men on duty at the second warehouse with his digital shrapnel jutsu before they could even see him, and he didn't give them a chance to raise an alarm either. Kimimaro approached the door and kicked it hard, drawing the attention of the 10 men inside. Kimimaro moved to the middle of the room and allowed the men who had drawn their weapons to surround him. They pointed clubs, spears, and swords at him, and they all stared at him as he pulled a bone sword from his shoulder and assumed a fighting stance. They all attacked the child in front of them because they knew he was dangerous. Dance of the Willow. In less than 5 minutes after entering the warehouse, Kimimaro killed every man there, promptly set the explosive tags that had been given to him, and walked out. A few minutes later, just before the warehouse was destroyed in a massive explosion, Kimimaro used his superior speed and agility to dodge and weave through his opponent's attacks while also delivering deadly hits with his weapon. Kimimaro finished his work and headed to the meeting spot. The third warehouse had only 4 guards, which was likely because Gato controlled all the supplies coming into the country and knew no one would be crazy enough to try and attack the only place where food was coming into the village. Haku was a little upset because she was given the easiest target and she knew it. With her Senbon, Haku was able to incapacitate the men guarding the warehouse almost effortlessly, and unlike the others, she was told to keep the warehouse intact because the villagers would be receiving all of the supplies inside. She left the warehouse after the men were safely restrained, intending to have a serious conversation with her team about attempting to keep her safe because it was her responsibility to ensure their safety. The warehouse was one big room on the first floor where all the women and children were kept in cages, and the second floor was a loft where Gato's men had 3 small storage rooms where they entertained themselves with the captured women. Naruto would have loved to just go to the front door and start making all these pieces of trash pay, but he couldn't put the innocent people inside in more danger than they were already, so he snuck in through a window on the second floor and stayed in the shadows. As he walked to the door of one of the rooms on the second floor, Naruto could barely contain his anger. Flashes of the day he found Haku glaring in his mind, and he knew what was going on without even hearing the noises coming from the door. The smell of sex was so strong that it made him want to throw up. He entered the small room, which had only a small bed, and he froze for a moment when he saw a big man thrusting eagerly at a naked girl who couldn't have been older than 15. Unaware that he had moved, Naruto found himself standing behind the man, and he used his right hand to draw a kunai while his left clamped over his mouth, paralyzing him in shock. Before the thud could make a sound, Naruto drove his kunai into the back of the man's skull, instantly killing him. Naruto turned to face the girl who was staring at him in disbelief, threw the dead man off her, and gave her a signal to keep quiet. The girl nodded in fear, and Naruto cut the ropes that bound her hands to the bed. He said softly, "Stay there and don't make any noise." He repeated this action in the next 2 rooms, but the woman in the final room screamed when he killed the man who was attacking her. Naruto hurried out of the room, expecting the scream to summon the other men upstairs, but apparently a woman's scream was not significant enough to investigate. Once he reached the first floor, he began quietly killing men from the shadows, but the last few men were all seated at a table in the back drinking, and Naruto was formulating a plan to remove them all when one of them abruptly got up and went to one of the cages, which contained 4 younger-looking girls. Naruto's blood froze when he saw the man remove a girl who appeared to be perhaps 11 or 12 years old. The man began unbuckling his pants as the girl, with tears in her eyes, struggled to contain them. One of the men at the table shouted, Hey, I don't need to see what you do with her, you ugly bastard, go use one of the rooms upstairs. They're using them all, so I can't. I'm only going to play with this one for a short time, so please stop talking. A whistling sound, however, was heard just before a kunai lodged itself on the side of the man's head before he could complete removing his belt. The men at the table were still staring at the dead man when Naruto came up beside them and used the arashi to cut two of them in half. The other three attempted to draw their weapons, but Naruto was so furious that he didn't give them time, and the men died without being able to defend themselves. After taking care of the men, Naruto went to the cages and began chopping off the locks and releasing the women, who were crying with happiness when they realized Naruto was there to give them their freedom. When Kimimaro and Haku arrived, Naruto was leading the remaining women out of the warehouse. I thought the plan was to meet at the spot we discussed, replied Naruto. When Haku said, Naruto-sama was taking too long so we came to see if you were okay, Kimimaro nodded. Shaking his head, Naruto said, fine, since you're here, help me get these people out of here. He knew they were only concerned for him, but he was more than capable of taking care of himself. The safe houses that we set up with Chizuna's help are ready, and some of the men have started to empty the food and supplies from the warehouse I liberated. Well done, Haku Kimimaro, you two will deal with that scumbag Gato himself tomorrow, so let's get these people out of here now. Even though Naruto was aware that they had dealt Gato a terrible blow tonight, he was still a threat that needed to be addressed, and he wanted to deal with the piece of trash directly, making Gato pay for all the pain the evil man had caused.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.